Michael, we're live, and when you're ready, staff can remove the graphic.
Great. Awesome. Welcome everybody tonight. Welcome to tonight's March 19th full design review board meeting. I'm going to call us to order. I have a quorum of 5 out of 9 members. We're still waiting. A couple people may join us, but we have 5, so we have a quorum, so we can get started. Um, I don't have any opening remarks, so I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So move.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion, any against? All right, motion passes 5-0. Now I'm looking to approve some last meeting minutes. Staff, do we have some meeting minutes we need to approve?
Yes, February 20th, February 27th, March 5th, and March 12th.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve February 20th, February 27th, March 5th, and March 12th meeting minutes?
So move.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Brian, seconded by John.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, any against? All right, motion passes 5-0. Right now I'm looking for any general member comments for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. We're a public meeting, so anything in reference to resident association, I don't think there's anybody registered to do that. So I think we can jump right in to our first application of the night, which is the Lake Throw. The STEAM team from South Lakes is here to present their spillway artwork project.
Hello, should I be sharing my screen?
No, I think the staff has it under control. I think they have your presentation. So you guys can kind of direct them where you need them to go in the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Rando, are you on here? There you are. We've made like a couple like very slight edits. Is it okay if we still use this old presentation, Mr. Rando?
Can you guys unmute Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Rando, can you unmute?
Mr. Rando?
Okay, sorry, I was on mute. I couldn't. Yeah, I guess we'll just run with what we have, Sophia. You'll be fine. We'll make the additions, and I'm sure the other members know what's going on as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so are we good to, sorry, I'll turn my camera on. Are we good to go ahead and start?
Yeah, go ahead, Sophia.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, hello, my name's Sophia Pahomkina, and I've been in STEAM Team for 4 years now. This is my 4th year. So I'm excited to present to you guys one more time, but we can go and get started. This is just the title slide for our public art design concept for the Spillway project, and it's going to be called Arborist. So this sculpture stands as a symbol of hope and renewal amidst our planet's pressing deforestation crisis. Oh, sorry, I think, yeah, there we go. Wood is a renewable resource, and sustainable forestry is essential for propagating the Earth's woodlands. Crafted from the remnants of previous sculptures, this design embodies the resilience and continuity of nature's cycle. Components of recycled lumber are to be repurposed and given a second life, urging us to forge a sustainable future. The installation will not just be a testament to what we've lost, but a beacon of what we can reclaim and restore through conscious efforts in sustainable living. It is a call to action, reminding our community of the importance of preserving our forests. In fact, this concept is so efficient in design that it will have less than 9% cutoff waste. And I'll hand it over to Amanda to discuss our models.
Hi. Is my camera working? There we go. I'm Amanda. This is my 2nd year in STEAM Team. I'm a senior. We had a lot of different models proposed for this year. All of them were very good, very pretty. But ultimately we ended up landing on one. You can move on to the next slide. Can't. This was the most popular one voted for. Initially we called it 1-2 Tree. I believe it was designed by Aiden. But we ended up, I'm sorry, my dad just interrupted me. I know I'm in a meeting.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, this was the most popular one. Though we did find it a bit difficult to build this one, so move on to the next one. I ended up designing this one. I wasn't, I'm just talking from my personal experience of building this. I was inspired by carousels and moving around them, and I had a whole idea of multicolor, and I wasn't expecting this to really do anything. But Mr. Rando encouraged me to do it. And when I did show it, we actually found that it was far more stable than the original idea and easier to build. So we worked on it and tried to keep the original stylistics of the original sculpture. So we ended on the last one, which is actually on the next slide. So yeah, thank you.
Andrew, is Andrew present?
Yeah, Andrew's going to discuss slides 7, 8, and 9. Andrew Wood, if you could unmute him, I think. Oh, Andrew, we can't hear you.
Oh, the gain dial was turned down. Apologies. My setup is the best. Entirely. So what we got here is a real engineering challenge, but we're pumped to make it, fight it. I don't know. Can I get the next slide, please? In order to build a sculpture this size, we're building it out of individual units, taking a similar design philosophy to what we did last year with Rise. They are built specifically to increase the balance, increase the stability, and increase the strength of this overall sculpture. And the way in which we are tying these sculptures together, these units together, will cantilever them against each other, which will perfectly balance out the whole frame, preventing it from falling outwards, as one might expect to happen. This design should allow for what might quite possibly be the heaviest sculpture we've done today. Next slide. Yeah, this again shows how the leaves are assembled. We first put two together, get it standing, and then you can slot on the other ones onto the sides. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, and in order to weatherproof this thing, while keeping that natural wood look, we're adding a clear coat to everything, which should allow the structure to remain strong for the whole year that's out there. We're also adding some, fun wind elements, which I believe Stella will get into next with the tree tags.
You want to talk about the color, and this is not the proposed color?
Oh yeah, no, this is most definitely not the proposed color. This is we're going to try to keep it natural wood to keep with the theming of sustainability and all that. That's why I mentioned with the clear coat, this model is not to color scale.
Hello,
No, I
I'm
believe it's
Stella.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Stella. I'm a sophomore at South Lakes High School, and this is my first year in STEAM. If we could go to the next slide. So for this project, we really wanted to make it a lot more interesting and dynamic. So we wanted to create kinetic elements, and the first picture is of the kinetic element that we tested with fabric called Ripstop Nylon. And I don't know if the video works. It looks like it's not, but we tested it with wind, and the way it moved was super interesting, and it's something that we were considering. So then the bottom image is aluminum tree tag concept that we're considering, where again, with the wind element, it's super interesting in just the way it moves, if the video is working. And yeah, they can definitely be spray painted different colors and could be super interesting. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So these are the tree tags up close, and we were like working with them in class, and they're really flexible and malleable, and you can write on them, and they're just a really interesting and dynamic piece. And they're also super reflective, which we thought would look really interesting on the water, and with the lake. If we could go to the next slide too. Yeah, so with the tree tags, one thing that we wanted to do is make this project more interesting and be able to connect with the community, which is super important with STEAM. Not only do we do art, but we want to be involved. And so myself and Mr. Rando came up with a question that we would have be answered through members of the community, such as like students, where they would be able to write their response on the tree tags. And so the question is, if I had one wish, I'd want the Earth to be. And we were inspired by the global project Before I Die, I Want to, which was created by Candy Chang. Thanks.
Are we on the next slide? It's taking materials. There you go.
I believe it's actually Andrew Wood that's going to discuss the materials.
Yes, sorry, it is me discussing materials. So in order to make something this strong, of course, we're going to be building it all out of lumber to keep that natural tree look. And to tie it all together, we're going to definitely need those aircraft tension cables that we've used in the past. That we may be using them differently as to how we've been, is normally we tie the sculpture to the ground, but in this case, one of the proposals I've heard is to tie the sculpture to itself. The aluminum tree tags, of course, talked about before, the nice interactive element, and we're keeping the lighting system very similar to how we have in past years. I believe that's it. Oh no, the steel braces. In order to make the center of this sculpture extremely strong, we're using steel bracing, 1/4-inch stick that runs across the entire length of it to tie units up across from each other to each other. And that should be more than strong enough to support the weight of it. I believe that's all.
Somebody want to take dimensions? There you go, Sophia.
Yeah, I'll take over from here. So our central trunk will be 12 feet tall, and overall the sculpture should be 14 feet tall, with the widest point being 18 feet wide. As Andrew mentioned, each unit will be fastened to the other units to provide support. And even though this will be the heaviest STEAM sculpture known to date, again, as Andrew mentioned, we have some really strong effective tactics that we will be using to ensure the structural integrity of the sculpture. So there should be no safety concerns, no worries of it falling down or tipping over, anything like that. So I think it's a great new challenge that will really test our engineering ability, and I think we'll be able to come through. As for our fundraising, we can go to the next slide. This just lets you all know that our total budget for this sculpture is $7,000, which is a great budget. I think it's one of our largest budgets yet. And we were able to fundraise this by doing our annual Jingle at the Lake crafting stations with the kids, where we sold a lot of our calendars. We also did a harvest fest, and we sold more calendars at back to school night. So calendars were our biggest profit, but they definitely came through. We have a great budget for the sculpture. And then as for our references, so people who looked over this project and made sure that it was feasible, we had Edward Klimo, who is a president at Studio 3 Architects. He has 40+ years of experience, and he helped develop and approve the structural integrity of the final model. He also influenced the brainstorming process during numerous STEAM meetings. So we would run all our models by him. So as you saw, the original 1-2 tree sculpture, we ran that by him. We worked it out, and he suggested a lot of the final components that you see on the final model today. We also had Mimi Herbert come in, who is an internationally renowned painter and sculptor, and she introduced new materials such as acrylic to us and shaping processes that we could use for that final sculpture. And she also reviewed our design concepts for the model, so a bit more on the artistic side, whereas Mr. Klimo was a bit more on the structural engineering side of things. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and consideration. We'd be happy to take any questions that you all have at this point, run back to any slides that you may have wanted to look over again. If you did want to see the dynamic elements, if I could share my screen, I think those videos could work and you would be able to see like the tree tags in motion if you all would like that as well. Just let me know.
Great, thank you. I don't think we have ability to let other people share screens, so I know I
okay,
can't
cool.
even share my own screen. So,
Okay.
but I do appreciate the offer. Let me go around the room, see if anyone has any questions for you, and then you guys are looking for, this is your final presentation for approval, correct?
Yeah, correct. So some things like the artistic elements will still change. Like as you can see with that final sculpture, it won't actually be white on the sides. That's just the cardboard that we used. As someone mentioned, it would be natural tree staining and have a very natural look that we think would blend into its surroundings, as Ruston is very natural and wooded.
Okay. Let me go around and see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll get to it. So, John, did you have any questions for anybody on the team?
No, just a couple of comments. I think this is a pretty exciting approach to doing this sculpture. And I was glad to see that Ed Klimo was involved. I've worked with him on the Hickory Cluster HVAC stuff, and he's very knowledgeable. So,
Oh, great. Yeah, he was very helpful during this whole process. We're very grateful for his help.
Great. Camelia, do you have anything?
No comments or no questions, but just wanted to say that was a really great presentation, and I think you guys did a great job, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your work continue with this.
Thank you.
Mike, I saw that you joined.
I did, sir. Apologies for my tardiness there. Zoom decided to update at the least opportune time in history. So thank you guys for a great presentation. The one point I would add, and again, it's just something for consideration, with a structure as tall and as wide as you guys are talking about, you may still need to anchor it in some fashion. Those supports out at the ground surface might not quite be enough if it's as large as you guys are projecting it to be. But I think it looks great. I'm excited to see it. So
yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration. I'm sure Andrew's writing that down.
Oh, absolutely.
Right
Yeah.
now.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've tied down every sculpture with aircraft cables.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
there it is.
that'll continue with this sculpture.
Yeah, because we'll have the steel braces and then the aircraft cables. We'll have a lot of aircraft cables, I think is what we're hearing. Oh, Andrew has a comment.
And there's okay, perfect.
Yeah, what I meant to say was that the aircraft cables would be used not only to tension it down, but also to tension it across. Like as another way to hold it together, but also it will continue to be held down. Yes.
Perfect. Love it.
Great.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Emily?
Took the words right out of my mouth. It looks like it was a beautiful presentation. You guys all did an excellent job. My only concern is I live right across from Lake Thoreau. I see the beautiful sculptures that you guys do. And with days like today where it's super windy, I just want to know that's going to be secure because you spent all this time and money and energy to make it get there. So security is definitely a concern with making sure that on heavily windy days, it's tied down. But other than that, no comments. I think it's a beautiful project and I can't wait to see it in action.
100%. Would anyone like to comment on that out of the team members? If not, I can take it.
Well, why don't we talk about the engineering that'll occur before it gets out on the lake?
Yeah. Andrew, do you want to keep discussing that or I can throw something in?
What exactly would you like me to discuss?
Just how we're going to keep it secure and as yeah,
Guys,
so it doesn't fall down.
Oh, so it doesn't fall down? Well, that's what the steel bracing is all about. So far, the working design, and I emphasize working because it's probably going to change as we, think about this more and develop the concept further, is to have ties across on the inside that hold it together, like big steel ties. And then also perhaps to complement them with like steel bands that run around the outside to make sure that this thing is not going anywhere. And the sheer weight of the sculpture should be enough to keep it down by itself, but we're not taking any chances. We're going to tension this thing down the same way we have in previous years, putting tension cables on the sculpture and tying them down to fixed metal points on the island.
Yeah, and as also, in addition to the weight, as you can see, there's a very wide base that's very spread out, has a lot of surface area, so that should also prevent any rocking.
Great.
the students will have to build this in the parking lot, just like they built every other sculpture. So there's still some learning components and definitely the engineering will be tested at that point.
Okay. Brian, do you have any questions?
Just one question first. The presentation listed 3 solar panels. I'm sure they're small for the amount of lighting, but how are those integrated into the sculpture? Is that still part of it?
They're not necessarily part of the sculpture. All the solar panels for all of the years, we set them up on the island on the ground, in like a flat configuration to catch a good amount of sun. They're not built into the sculpture.
Excellent. Thank you. I would, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, I was just going to piggyback off the question because I was trying to figure out where the lights were going. If it was going to be, I know like last year's, wasn't it kind of internally illuminated?
Yes,
and this year's, like, are you more uplighting this thing, kind of like tree uplighting, or kind of what's the?
That I believe we are uplighting it. Yes.
Yeah, we are. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it'll be some low voltage uplights on it. It's powered by those solar panels.
And since we'll also have those reflective tree tags hanging in the tree, the uplights will hit those and it'll have like a twinkling effect. So maybe at night it'll kind of look like stars and that could be pretty.
And how many uplights do you think you have? I think I saw that there was potentially up to 8 of them. Is that accurate?
I believe so. Andrew, do you want to stay unmuted or Mr. Miranda, do you know the answer?
Yeah, sorry, I just keep muting myself. Yeah, we have 8 uplights. Actually, it might be reduced. It might even be reducing it to 6 just to keep with the symmetry of the tree.
Just a little point of critique. It's a lot of lighting.
Yeah.
So from an uplights perspective, so it's just something you might want to look at. You know, maybe more.
I know we've gotten complaints about the lights in the past, so we try to keep them just to what we need.
Perfect. And then my only other question was, sorry, Brian, did you have anything further?
I was just going to comment and say that I thought you all did a great job on the presentation. I really like the design, and I also really like the addition of the aluminum tree tags or some kind of metal piece that's going to hang from it, especially if there's a lot of them and they kind of cling together and make a little bit of a sound effect. I think will be a really nice addition for people going by on their boats or walking by on the trail. I think will be a really nice addition to the sculpture as well. So well done, good job.
Thank you.
So the only question I was going to ask, and I saw at the beginning, it was talked about how you guys, the goal is to try to use as much reclaimed lumber as you can. Have you guys talked with some of the bigger builders that are building kind of these wood mid-high rises along the transit service area to try to get some leftover lumber? Because so much of that stuff always ends up in the trash. So just curious if that's who you guys are talking to or.
Not yet. So we actually have a lot of our own lumber that we use for past sculptures. We just have in the parking lot at the school, we just have a ton that we were thinking we could reuse, but I don't think we have enough for the whole sculpture. Right, Mr. Endo? So that could be a great idea actually, because it would help reduce waste even more and help us get involved with the community even more. So thank you for that idea. We will be writing that down.
I would definitely not want you to be buying lumber. Let's put it that way. I know how much stuff gets thrown away. I mean, even if, you guys can get my contact information. I have jobs all the time where we're doing demo and there's always extra wood left over or whatever. And, we're, happy to kind of package it together and drop it off wherever you need to. So
just get
in contact and I can help you out.
That'd be great. That's fantastic.
So anyways, I think overall design looks great. Presentation went well. Would anyone want to make any other further questions? Want to make a motion on the project? They're looking for final approval for this.
I make a motion to approve the concept as it's been developed and keep us informed about how it's coming along.
Okay, there's a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a second by Emily. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for having us today, and thank you very much for all your support.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right. Jumping on to the next one. We have 11900 Lake Newport. It's Armstrong Elementary.
You're
Okay.
unmuted.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I just want to say that was a really refreshing presentation. Nice way to start our evening. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Yeah, I'm Pete Bloom. I'm with Ford Copeland Mock Architects. We're the architects working on behalf of Fairfax County Public Schools on this project. When last we met with you in January, there were a couple of things that you asked us to look into. One, you asked us to look at the front elevations of the building. You had some critiques of things that we thought were really helpful that we've looked at. And so we've done that, look at those with the owner, and we'll update you on that. Another thing that you asked us to look at was the panelization, the size of the panels and the patterning of the panels for one of the building elements, which is basically an existing quote unquote cornice. Another thing you asked us to look at was to improve the graphics of the site lighting diagrams, which we've done here, and we'll get into that. And hopefully it'll make it easier to read what parts of the site will be leveled or lighted at what levels. And then the last thing you asked us to look at was the views from the north elevation, the north side of the building towards the building, and from the playing fields, to see to what extent we could see the mechanical equipment and to what extent mechanical screening would be effective. So those are things we want to go over. I will start with this slide here just to review where we are quickly. LaShonda, if you can zoom in on the upper right-hand corner of the slide to show the school. There you go. All right, so currently this is Lake Newport Road. Lake Newport Road comes along to the south and goes over to Fairfax County Parkway. The bus loop, the current bus drop-off and pickup loop, comes off of Lake Newport Drive, goes in towards the main entrance of the building on the east side of the school near number 2, and then goes back out using the same curb cut that exists today onto Lake Newport. At the back of the school, we have a kiss and ride. We're reusing the existing curb cut. We're expanding the kiss and ride in the back, making it longer so we have more staff and parent parking for events. So that's kind of our starting point right now. If you can zoom out to the whole slide, please. The image on the upper left, you'll see that is the west-looking view. The right-hand wing is a 2-story wing of classrooms over there. The left-hand wing, you see a gymnasium that abuts the playgrounds. The view just below that is the view from the north. This is an aerial view above the playing fields. This north view, you can see a couple of things. You see the gym is the 2-story volume on the right end. Just to the left of that, there's a large cooling tower that we're taking down and replacing, or actually getting rid of. Just to the left of that, there's the existing loading dock with its trash and recycling, which we are going to propose putting behind a walled enclosure with gates. And then just to the left of that is a SAC, which is kind of the extended day function for the school. And then below that is the east view. The east view, this is going to be the main entrance in the future. It's currently the main entrance. And our addition will basically have a new administration wing that masks all of this existing construction on the right-hand side of the main entrance. And on the left-hand side of the main entrance, we'll have a 2-story addition that adds a set of classrooms on 2 levels to the classroom wing. And the roadway in front of the school is going to necessarily move towards us, towards the east, to make more room for pickup and drop off in the future. And the bottom view, you can see, this is the aerial view looking from the south. An interesting part of the site is that the south side is abutted by a hill, on top of which is a densely forested crop of trees. So much of the south facing aspect of the building looks out on these beautiful trees. And then you can see the left-hand wing of the classrooms, the right-hand wing of the classrooms. And in the center is this double height space, which is currently a library and a kind of main gathering space for the students. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, if you just zoom the whole thing. This is the elevation, all of the elevations that we showed you the last go around. And I just wanted to show you this for reference. If you look at this middle view right here, LaShawna, you just pass it right there, right at the right-hand center of this image. This is what the design of the front entrance looked like when we met last in January. And you had some really good insights into like whether the role of this blue, dark blue, is really appropriate for this, whether the light blue metal panel adjacent to this window over the main entrance made any sense. And just to the extent that you seem to like the west elevation where we developed a new library. So we kind of looked at making this elevation more like that west library. So if you just go to the next slide, please. Okay. And if you can pan to the middle view with the green box around it. Okay. All right. This is pretty much the same view here. This is a reconsidered version that we've taken what is basically an administration suite that you see, and we've taken the same approach to the windows as we took at the library side, where we have a feature window which projects out from the wall a little bit, and we'll catch some sunlight and throw some shading on the windows. We have extended the amount of brick in the facade so that the brick extends all the way from the extreme north end of the building right down to the main entrance. And then we've retained the metal panel above the canopy to create a kind of crisp horizontal that extends that mass. And then we've also looked at improving the size of the glazing and having the glazing at the main entrance relate more directly to the doors. And we've actually added a small clear story on the side, just to the right of the entrance cube, which you can't see in this view, but and we've further developed the details of the entrance canopy. And significantly, we studied a lot of locations and sizes for the Armstrong Elementary School signage. And we found that the Armstrong lettering installed above the top of the canopy right near the main entrance was really quite effective and highly visible. And you'll see that in some of the renderings we show later. But so we've gotten rid of those bright blue strips that you had noted in the previous design. We got rid of those light blue metal panel strips that came down on either side of this window and then went down here. And we've made the windows relate directly to the door pattern of the main entrance as well. So we think these are all improvements. We also slightly increased the height of the main entrance volume so that it has a little bit more presence and marks the entry as more of a moment in the project. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. I just want to review this for you. These are the proposed materials. If you look at the left-hand column, there are 3 bricks here that we propose. The middle brick, called existing brick, this is really, 100% of the existing building is this brick right here in the middle. We're going to need to salvage that and reuse it in some places. Above that, we have a brick, which is not an exact match, but it's a blend. It has some very close to it. We didn't want to try to get an exact match where we have additions that abut that. So we'll have, we pick up on the color of the original. It'll be clear that it's not the original, yet it still relates to it. And then at the bottom here, the accent brick relates to the blended brick at the top. And we'll use this for some horizontal or some soldier courses over the windows and some other 1 or 2 other features. In the middle of this slide, the metal panel, we've chosen the same colors. We've just we've used less of the metal panel. The lower left, we're using a brown red metal panel, which we want to sheathe the existing cornice in so that it will more closely match the existing brick, the salvaged brick, which you can see in our renderings. Is the intent. Just to the right hand column of that, there's a light gray metal panel, which we're proposing for the majority of the metal panel and the new construction elements. And then at the upper right hand corner of the metal panel box, there is a kind of light blue gray that we're proposing to use a little bit on the library side of things. Just to the right of that, we have colors for our components of the building. The storefront system will be a clear anodized is what we're proposing. The roofing, just to the right of that, most of the new and existing flat roofs will be built up roofs, 4-ply built up roofs that will be black at the end of the day. Where we have sloping roofs over the middle of the building, we propose to have standing seam gray. This is called a slate gray. And we think that'll be an improvement. Currently, the sloping roofs on the project are asphalt shingle. We think this will be more durable and holds together with the rest of the building. And then lastly, for roofs, the white color here, this will be a TPO roof that we use on top of the entry canopies exclusively. So just to the left of that, there are these 4 colors. We still would like to have some of the hoppers, the operable units within the windows relate to the classroom pods. So we think these slight variations in color will help to give the students some identity. And we think it's a fairly subtle read. You'll see when you look at the elevations that the hoppers are colored on the elevations, but it's very difficult to see at this scale, which I imagine will be the case from a distance. We can go to the next page, please. All right. This image juxtaposes both the top image, which is our new proposed elevation in response to your comments, and the image immediately below it is the previous image. So you can see the differences 1-to-1. The materiality has changed slightly, as I said. There's less metal panel, there's more brick. We've deleted one of the colored metal panels, and we've deleted the colored glass. So we think we've got it back down to, I think, the same palette of materials that we had used successfully on the West Elevation Library. Okay, you go to the next slide, please. All right, this is just at a larger scale showing this is where we were the last time we met. These were the details of the areas that you pointed out to us for further study. And if you go to the next slide, these are those same areas now after we've kind of simplified them and kind of brought a little bit more order to them. You can see how the fenestration of the entry sequence is much more deliberate, and the windows above at the clear story relate to the glazing below. And that to the right, where we have this kind of feature window that frames a number of administrative offices, that glazing projects out and is blue. The mullions actually project out and cast shadows at certain times of the day. And then above that, there's just this simple gray metal panel over a soldier course of brick. Okay, next slide, please. This is an overview of the rear elevation, the library panel. These 2 areas circled in red are detailed below. And these were the details of the areas that I think you liked, particularly coming from your review of the elevations. So this is what we tried to relate it to. And so this is that same window system that we've brought to the front of the building now. And this is the same combination of gray metal panel and brick that we've used as well. So next slide, please. Okay, this we didn't focus on this a lot the last time we met, but this is an elevation which shows it's split somewhat, but it shows the extent of a very long south elevation, most of which is screened by that hill on the south, but which gets a lot of sun during the day. And it is also the place where you see at the right end of the drawing, the elevation, we transition from pretty much existing brick to the new brick construction. And if you look down to the left-hand image, the left-hand image is a blow up of that same area. And you can see how we have control joints that we're cutting in at the end of the existing building. And then we're transitioning to the blended brick that we have. And in both cases, we're using the same fenestration approach with the same sunscreens that you can see in section. And over here on the upper right-hand corner, this axonometric shows kind of the sunscreen that we're proposing. So all the south windows will have, well, first of all, they'll all be new, of course, but they'll all have sunscreens and they'll all have hoppers at the classrooms. Okay. Any questions? Or you just want me to continue on? Okay. All right, I'll just keep going on. You can. This is a sheet we're trying to show you more expressly the actual components we propose for the project. The upper left-hand corner shows, in the red box, shows a version of the sunscreen. The exact configuration of the sunscreen will vary a little bit on which bidder we get in the end, but this is very much where we'd like to go. The lower left-hand corner shows the kind of anodized aluminum storefront doors we're expecting to get. Again, how narrow the lights are and how narrow the frames are will vary with which manufacturers we can get. At the upper right, the red box shows the relationship of the anodized hoppers to the anodized window frames. In our case, though, we're proposing to color the hoppers lightly with those 4 colors we showed earlier. And then below, you're seeing this is really our approach to just the punched windows in the building will be aluminum storefront with the anodized finish. Okay. And next slide, please. To clarify for you all the different roof types we have in the building, the central area of the building that's shown in blue, there's 2 blue sections. There's a small blue section off to the right. Those are both standing seam. Those will both be sloping roofs. The sloping roof to the right is in addition to allow sunlight into the south end of the cafeteria. It's a dormer, clear story dormer. The pink areas shown over each end of the building are canopies that are TPO roofs. And literally all of the other roofs are built up 4-ply roofs. And there's a slight variation where we're building over existing space and where we're building over new, but they're both built up roofs. Okay. Next slide, please. This slide begins to show you some of the new studies. The image circled in green here at the top of the slide. This is a new perspective of the main entrance with reflecting the new design studies. And you can see to the left of it is actually the existing building and what it looks like today. And this shows what it'll look like, unfortunately, what it'll look like mostly before the trees grow in. But it does show the new landscaping against the building. And we are replanting trees along this front edge, so there will be shade in the front eventually. If you pop down below that, this is the view from the southeast. This is on the left-hand side, you see this is the end of the existing academic wing, and we're extending that by a full classroom width on 2 floors, and it moves out much closer to Lake Newport Road, and the driveway in front of it moves out closer accordingly. And you can see how we've used this very consistent language for all the classroom windows with the soldier course headers, the aluminum frame punched windows, hoppers, and the sunshades on the south facing windows only. Okay. And if you go to, I think there's one more image at the bottom of the sheet. Okay. At the very bottom of the sheet, in the proposed view, here you can see this is at the entrance to the Kiss and Ride on the very south side of the park, the road near Fairfax County Parkway. And this will be an existing building, but you can see the massing's very similar, but we've put on those window shades so you can see the sunscreens being very effective on the south elevation. And then you can see to the left of that image, you can see the new canopy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this we did show you previously. This is an example of the playground design that FCPS does. FCPS does their own playground design, but these are two recent examples of both an actual installation and their design deliverables that they developed during the course of the project. Okay. All right. And if you just go to the next slide, please. All right, this is just showing you updated studies of parts of the building you saw previously. This is the northwest corner showing the new library in the immediate foreground with all the glazing on the north side, and a glazed clear story on the west side with the feature window in blue. To the right of that is a new canopy which serves the Kiss and Ride lot. And the two elevations to the top show both, on the left hand shows the west elevation of the library and straight on view, and the north elevation is shown in the right hand view. Showing we have a slight slope to the roof of the library. It opens up as it goes to the north and west. Okay, and if we go to the next slide, this is the same kind of study for the main entrance. This shows the higher entry piece. This shows there's a slight clear story on the right-hand side of that entry cube. And it shows how we've simplified and extended the brick across the facade, and how we've carried that idea of a feature window or the administration suite across here as well. And it shows, again, the updated landscaping. And then the views above show, obviously, just the updated elevations. If you go to the next slide. One of the things you asked us to look at was the way we were patterning the metal panel that we proposed to cover that existing precast cornice with. On the existing building, if you look at the image on the upper right-hand corner, there is, I think, what was shown, this is closer to what was shown last time, where there's a very big 48-inch panel, not quite even, but we think that's really too big. And so we looked at how many joints were appropriate and how they affected the image, and then how big the panels were, because the larger the panels were, we're concerned about oil canning in the metal panels, and we don't think that would look very good. So we thought that this image in the middle, which shows basically 24-inch wide vertical bands that are split in half at the cornice level, they seem to strike a good balance, and that they're small enough that they're not going to be susceptible to oil canning. So, and in many cases, they're going to relate to the windows, because the windows are all 8 foot wide. So we would propose this middle ground for the new patternization, where we're trying to enclose the existing cornice element. Okay. And the next slide, please. All right. This slide, on the left-hand side, you can see the proposed site plan with the 3 additions shown in dark gray. The north side of the school, we have shown 3 arrows that correspond to the 3 perspectives on the right-hand side of the screen. View number 1 at the top of the screen on the right is the easternmost red viewpoint, number one. And this shows from a person's eye view, it's standing at ground level, what you can see at the top of the building as you go back towards back of the building. This view, number two, is slightly further back on site, and also it's closer to the hill where the playing fields are. And this shows you can't see any mechanical equipment on these roofs at all from this location. And then if you go down to the north view, or the third view, I'm sorry, from the north, this shows if you're at the extreme north side of the parking lot, directly behind where the current dumpsters locations is, you can begin to see some pieces of equipment on the roof skyline. You can see just to the right of the tree, kind of in the middle of the screen, there's a gray piece of equipment above this brown cornice element. It's right there, that piece. You can see that piece of equipment. And this shows keep in mind that just to the right of this, trash enclosure, we have taken out the unsightly cooling tower, and we've also put this new enclosure around the trash to screen it from use. Today it's just two dumpsters sitting out at the loading dock. So those are some of our studies. I'm going to get to the next slide. This shows you a slide. Once you go up, the playing fields to the north of the building are approximately 12 feet higher than the rest of the site. So once you get up there, you can of course see much more of the roof. So this is the view of the entire roof with no screening whatsoever, from up between the two softball fields right at the top of the hill. You go to the next slide. This is what we would need to provide to screen the mechanical elements that are on the roof. These areas in red are 8-foot high screens. They will have about 2 foot clear at the bottom to let snow, to make sure snow doesn't accumulate there. But so these are shown at 8 feet high, and we would need something on the order of 6 to 8 of these enclosures to screen the mechanical equipment. And then the next slide you'll show is a direct comparison where you can see the image on the right at the top shows the unscreened view, and below shows what the views would be, where you would see screening in the future. And if it were to be there, the color we considered would be the same gray as the metal panel used elsewhere. And we would propose like a louvered metal screen. And you can see on the left-hand slide, it shows a plan, and we've circled in red where there's mechanical equipment. If you zoom in, you can zoom in on the plan on the left side. To the left, please, on the plan. Thank you. We have circled in red where we would need to erect mechanical screens. The mechanical equipment, some of the mechanical equipment is nestled in valleys so that you won't be able to see it even without screening. And then some of it is just rooftop mounted. So, okay, thank you. And if you can go really to the next slide, please. There you go. This is the site lighting photometric plan, which we have overlaid with colors to show where the brightest areas are. And you can see the ellipses in blue or purple are actually areas where the foot candle levels range between, I think, 6 and 12. They average between 6 and 12. So it's quite bright at the perimeter of the building. The areas in green are pole mounted lights. I should add to that the lights in blue are wall mounted. They correspond to the fixture on the lower right over here, this kind of wall mounted luminaire, the sconce. The site light highlighted in green covers the roadways and parking lots, and it has a lower, it's covered by these poles that you see on the upper right-hand side. You can see the head of that. These are LED fixtures. These are, well, I should say they're all LED fixtures, even the sconces. And these have a much lower lighting level. They average between 1 and 2.6 or so foot candles, which meets the requirements without overlighting things. There is some trace lighting on a pathway up to the fields that we haven't rendered. It's lower than that. And then there's trace lighting that spills out on the south side of the building until it hits the hill. The other lighting that you see on the perimeter of the site is from other sources off site. Okay. That's okay. And I think that's really where we wanted to start. I'm happy to take questions. We're happy to show you more. We're happy to go back. However, we can address your concerns.
Great. Thank you, Pete.
Mhm.
Let me go around the room and see if there's any questions for you. And
Sure.
then we will then have some discussion. You guys are looking for final approval tonight?
Yes.
Okay. LaShonda, do we have any affected parties still that would like to say anything tonight? I know on application there was a couple.
Yeah, sure. No, no problem. We didn't have anybody that submitted an updated affected party statement, and no one confirmed, and I don't see anyone here on as an affected party. I can run through the list real quick just to make sure.
No, that's okay. I just was curious if someone was here for the project, just raise your hand as we're going through comments. But I just wanted to make sure, because I know last time there was a few people who spoke and who live in the neighborhood there behind. So just following protocol. John, do you have any questions for Pete?
I have one question that probably is dated. You're getting rid of a big cooling tower. How is that being done?
Well, we're changing the systems entirely. We're going to a number of VRF units and some DOAS units.
Okay. I figured as much. I was a hospital architect for 30 years, and big cooling towers were always an issue with those. And so I guess technology has advanced past my experience. So
VRF units are pretty impressive what they can do.
Yeah, VRFs are pretty much just mini cooling towers. They're just more efficient.
Yeah,
they're small enough.
Similar stuff.
They're small enough that you have a chance of not seeing them.
That's like you younger guys were a lot more efficient than I was doing
Camelia, did you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Mike?
No, sir. I'm good. Thank you.
Emily?
Yeah, sorry. I know I didn't hear it in the applicant's presentation, but it's something that I've brought up in our past conversations, that I feel that, one, very good presentation, nothing against the redevelopment of the school. I just feel like there's 188 trees that are going to be removed. And if you look at page 22 or 23, I believe, that the reason of removal for, I think it was the next page. The reason for removal, if you look at the tree schedule, is grading, which is essentially the cheapest way to avoid or to deal with tree removal. And while I know that some trees need to be removed, I feel like we could be doing more to save canopy and rehabilitate canopy. Even looking at the proposed tree schedule going forward, it does not seem that it's been a high priority to really consider how much damage this parking lot is going to do to the existing tree canopy and how much we're going to be rehabilitating it going forward. That's my biggest concern, especially in areas where I know a simple retaining wall, and I know it's simple and it would be costly, but you know, we can't replace 30-inch diameter trees, you know, not without a time machine. So that would be my only comment. I have hesitation about the amount of trees that are being removed and the amount of trees that are going to be replaced. And I would like to see more of an effort being put forth to mitigate that going forward.
I recall specifically there was one tree on the west edge of the Kiss and Ride expansion that you were concerned about.
It is 3073.
Yeah, yeah.
And it still looks like it's on the docket to be removed. And it's quite a large, I believe, white poplar. So it's on staff, it's on the left-hand side, tree 3073. I know it seems something silly to hammer down on one tree in specific, but it's a good indication of priorities.
It's a tulip tree. That's right.
A tulip poplar, yes.
Yeah.
So I would like to see more effort. There's 188 trees put on this plan that are to be removed. I would like to see that be lessened, and I would like to see any other tree canopy restoration efforts be incentivized during this construction process.
Can we go? I want to make sure that you've seen all the trees we're proposing to plant as well. I mean, if you go, LaShonda, I think 1 or 2 slides forward.
Slide 25 shows a lot, because a lot of the tree planting, Pete, I believe, is all up in the front by the new bus lane.
But also in the Kiss and Ride as well. We are basically we're trying to reforest the front of the school because there are nice trees there now, and because at the south end of the stormwater management facility, we're going to lose some trees. So we're trying to really plant a lot in the front of the school. We are also trying to plant on the parking islands in the Kiss and Ride, so that we're starting to build back those things. And we've been able to design the Kiss and Ride to preserve one mature tree in one of the medians. And then we're also providing new trees at the entrance to that parking lot, which will, we think, fill in and kind of narrow down the focus on asphalt in that area. And then there are a couple of trees in the back where we're trying to get plantings on the north side of the school that will help to screen some of the views to the loading dock and a generator back there. So those are really the focus of our plantings. But I just want to be clear that we are putting back as well.
I do see that. It's just that normally when we put through an application, we ask for a 1-to-1 with residential properties or anything else. We say, hey, you're taking out 10 trees. You're going to put 10 trees back of like kind, like species. And I don't see that in this proposal. It's 188 trees removal only. I believe 2 or 3 that are actually dead or in failing condition based on the arborist report. And we're not seeing a replacement in kind to accommodate that loss of canopy. Sorry, loss of canopy. It's quite a large amount of trees that are being taken out, and I only counted 28, I think, being put back in, many of which are a smaller canopy coverage. So they will not be providing the same amount of resources to reinstate the natural environment that we are looking for. So I'm not necessarily saying change the plan. As much as it saddens me, I would like there to be more creative efforts being put forth, but I think we do need to look at more reforestation efforts in your plan going forward to make sure that we are replacing 1-for-1. It's what we institute for residential neighborhoods or residential projects. And I think it's only fair to put it forward with you guys to say, hey, you're taking out 188 trees, fine. 3 of them are dead, but the rest of them need to be replaced in kind.
Understood. I think one other thing I did want to point out, and maybe I haven't, is if you can zoom out of this plan all the way out, in the upper right-hand corner of the site, there is a section of the site which has been dedicated to reforestation. Those no, LaShonda, that it's on our parcel. It's between the right-hand edge of the ball fields and where you see that underground drain line. That area right there is dedicated by the school to reforestation. And
But if I recall,
is
that
growing.
area was dedicated to reforestation prior to this project, was it not?
Correct. But what I'm saying is that the school is trying to fill in the canopy in this entire area.
I do honor that, and I do see that. I think that that was a reforestation area prior to this project, and that we should dedicate extra areas to reforestation due to this upcoming project. That reforestation effort was because of the initial school build. There needs to be additional effort because of the trees that we're taking out for so many reasons. So that's my piece. I'm sure there are other people. Michael, I'll hand it back to you, but
I think it's a good point, Emily. I think what's tricky is like even in looking at this slide right now, it's a few trees, but on that hill kind of leading up to the ballpark, there's probably 5, 6 trees that are being removed due to the new fencing, the kind of walking trail that they're doing. But then if you go to the new proposed plan, there's nothing going back on that hill. Maybe that's a simple spot that we can, find some spots for other trees to kind of, be put back into the plan. I do think there's a couple big tulip trees that are getting taken out. There's that 3073, but then I also saw like 3700 kind of for one of the outdoor classrooms. And it's strictly, once again, because of grading, and it seems it's just because they're basically putting some dirt over the drip line. It seems like there would be a better way that we maybe could save a couple of these diameter. I mean, because these trees are 20-inch plus diameters. They're big, healthy trees. They have big, healthy root systems. I'd love to see if there's a way we could maybe not stack the dirt on top of them. And yeah, if you zoom in on that plan, LaShonda, it's like 30, I think it's 3700. I have my tree.
You talking about at the outdoor classroom?
At the outdoor classroom,
Yeah.
it's 3170, sorry.
Yeah.
3170.
Pan right a little bit, Shonda.
And once again, that's another tulip tree, 25-inch diameter. It's a big, healthy tree that's really just getting impacted because it's a little too close. Its root zone is getting impacted. It's actually outside of the area of disturbance, but its root zone is getting impacted. So
There's
it'd
a
just be
couple
nice
things.
the way we could do some maybe potential tree mitigation measures
yeah.
to save those.
There's a
bigger
couple
ones.
things with this tree in particular. We have a couple of options. One is we could narrow the outdoor classroom a little bit to get it further away from the drip line of that tree and have the same area for the outdoor classroom, but it'd be slightly longer. Oh, or we could do that with a combination of a small retaining wall on the south edge of that sidewalk. I guess, Najib, would you want to weigh in on these issues? Because there are little things we could do like that would allow us to save certainly the tree that's being talked about right now. I think the tulip poplar on the west side is a little bit more, I think it also would require a retaining wall.
But again, yeah, it might be some solution, but I would definitely refer to our civil engineers to look at the solution for this one. But like we definitely consider some tree mitigation on this one to make sure that we save the trees that is possible on the side. But we'll take a consideration of that one as well.
Okay. I do think, I think Emily and Mike, I think the two trees in question, if we can afford a retaining wall, we can manage. I think your point about putting trees between the ball fields and the rest of the site along the side of that hill, that's something quite interesting we should look at.
Yeah, and the only reason why I even thought about it, because I know it's grass now, and I'm sure the kids love it on field day, and they, probably roll down it or whatever. But there's currently trees on it that we're having to remove which were probably planted. Honestly, they're small enough. They probably were planted by the school at some point.
Yeah,
As like a classroom activity or something for Arbor Day or something, right? And so it'd be nice to maybe we can put something back there on that hill. Not to mess with the erosion issues, but maybe keep it up, you know, towards the top part of the hill, where it's a little bit flatter. You know, potentially there's some way to put those at the very end of the project once the temp trailers are out of there, once everything's gone. You know, we no longer necessarily need an eyesight, because my guess is they maybe want to be able to look up there. And there's going to be those utilities running that they don't want to plant trees right away. But maybe once the project is over, that might be a good place to put back at least there 1-for-1 for the trees, because there's really no reason you can't put back those trees because they're there now. There's space there.
I think
I get for the drive aisle, you know, we're going through a slightly wooded area. So, you know, we're taking out, you know, 50 trees that are in that drive aisle. I'm okay with not replacing those 1-for-1 in that instance, but because we don't really have a great spot to put them. But for spaces that we do have, you know, places to put them, I think it's a great point by Emily. I think we should try to put those back at a minimum and do some tree mitigation efforts on those kind of large 20-inch plus diameter options.
So I think you're referring to the area just off the top left of this plan as it is now. LaShawn,
Correct.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, so basically on the left softball field in the zone.
Yeah, so there's tree 75, 76, 77, 111, 121. All those are 178. Those are all coming out. But then if you go back to the new plan, there's nothing going back in on that hill.
The ones to the left of the center of the softball fields, I think you're right. I think we could definitely look at that. The ones on the slope that go up to the softball fields, that actually is a really good access route up to the playing fields for emergency vehicles. So it's certainly where we're going to service the construction from. And in the future, it might be something that you want to keep clear in the event that an emergency vehicle needs to get up to the fields. So in that location, I'd be more cautious, but I think what you're saying, certainly to the west side of the fields, definitely can be explored.
Yeah, and I think it'll also kind of help my secondary concern, which has been the HVAC units with that view from because I think you did a good point of showing from street level, you don't see it, but unfortunately you have a huge hill right there where you do see the entire roof. And so even having somewhat of a buffer up there when you are enjoying the field, you know, those trees then can help also block that view and maybe help, you know, I'd rather have trees than HVAC screening. You know, personally,
no, I agree.
That's more preferable to me. So I'm open to that idea as well. So just kind of little issues like that, I think can be figured out. But
okay, sure.
Emily, did you have any other thoughts?
Just that, yes, I would love to see a 1-to-1 canopy coverage at the end of this project. I think there's plenty of area where we could introduce some shade and some native species and some habitat where we're removing them. And also just maintaining the large trees. I get it. We're trying to expand. There's going to be some trees that are 7-inch caliper, you know, smaller, that have to come out, and it's sad, but where we've got those larger trees that are older than me, I would like to keep them as much as possible. If they're old, if the trees are older than the school, let's keep them, you know, while we can. And everything else, let's replace in kind to create a reduction in a heat island effect, canopy coverage for stormwater, and also just a reduction in stormwater management, because they're going to be holding back everything, all of those hillsides. So I would really, 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 really push to say, let's make sure that when the next time I see this plan, our tree canopy coverage is more of a 1-to-1 and less of a 10-to-1, or a 1-to-10, I should say.
Okay. Brian, did you have any comments, thoughts?
I guess a couple questions. The first one, I'm sure will be quick. I just didn't understand. Are you putting the roof screen up for the mechanical units? Is that part of the project or not?
Well, we're not. We studied it, and we'd really rather not, to be honest, just because of the roof penetrations and the cost. Well, the other thing I didn't mention this, but the forestation to the north of the playing fields and the forestation in the back of the neighbors' yards, the abutting neighbors' yards, really makes it so that the neighbors can't see the school from their backyards. So, I mean, it's really just a question of people on the playing fields seeing the mechanical.
Okay.
But no, so our study just shows where we would have to put them. We're not proposing. We'd like to pass on that if at all possible. But we can hear more from you on that.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything more on that now. I just didn't follow. So, and then my second question is, we haven't really talked about it much. Could you talk about the canopies? It looks like there's quite a bit going on there, but I'm not. I was hoping you could talk about
Sure.
those in a little more detail.
I think one of the elevations, the straight on elevation of the front would be the proposed. If you look at sheet 3, or yes, 7 would be fine.
7 kind of has a blow up.
Yeah. 7 in the lower. If you zoom in on the lower right of that image, just to your left, please. There you go. Yeah, what these are pairs of steel W sections that are going to be they're going to be custom cut and have stiffener plates and end plates put on them, and they will support a beautiful metal channel on the edge as well. And then the beams which support the canopy off of the front leading beam have a number of plates that project out, and it's kind of a transposition of the traditional bird's mouth detailing that you would see in some wooden rafters to steel rafters. So each one of these W sections that you see at each of the columns, and then even between them, will be detailed in such a manner that they're really quite interesting. The bottoms of them slope up, the top is flat. It's a W section there's some stiffener plates, and there's some plates that just develop strength up where the steel is cut. I don't believe that we have a detail in this presentation.
Do they sit on a little base?
Yes, there's a little base. If we
all
pan
painted
down,
the silver color, like the Dibond panels.
Here they are. They're 2-inch concrete bases with a steel plate. That the steel, all the columns and plates are pre-manufactured together as one unit, and will anchor to these bases. We wanted to have something to elevate the bases, to protect them, but we didn't want the bases to be too big, because this is a very busy area for pedestrians. But so each one of these is basically a pair of W sections back to back, the flat sides back to back, and then the sculptured sides that cast shadows face out on each side, and all of the beams relate to the center lines or the quarter points between those columns. So the canopies are all exposed steel, with there's a closed soffit. There's a closed soffit so that we can include lights, etc. But the framing members are all exposed steel.
And then what is the finish on them? Just because it looks like a different finish than, the surrounding metal panels. And
it's a white high performance coating. It's I don't think we'll be able to get Tnemec, but it'd be kind of a generic for Tnemec. I think Sherwin-Williams has one now, and a couple different companies do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
so yeah, it'll be a white semi-gloss.
Gotcha. Okay. In general, I like the changes that you made at the entry. I like how you raised that that kind of metal panel element and gave that a little more strength at the entry. I think that's nice. I like how you've aligned the windows all the way across and some of the mullions pulling those lines across. So I think the entry is much improved. So I really appreciate that. I guess my last maybe question or discussion, if we go to slide 16, is regarding these metal panel cornices. And I don't know if I have a suggestion, but I'm just not sure I'm just not sure it's working yet. They just feel very kind of heavy right over top of the windows. And I guess maybe it's more of a question in terms of if you could just remind me from the past presentation, they're just going over top the existing stucco or ephes cornice, I guess. And
it's precast.
The precast.
Yeah, it's precast. It's a precast, and it has a stepped profile so that the bottom third to half is close to flush with the top of the brick veneer, and then it steps out maybe an inch and a half, and then it goes up and it becomes the parapet for the building. I think one of the existing shots in our comparison of posed renderings versus existing shows some areas of the cornice if you want to see it. It's a very light, almost whitish concrete. It's a very heavy element, and it literally comes down to the top of the windows. So this is an element that FCPS has been very interested in us concealing throughout this process. So,
but obviously demoing and taking like the brick veneer all the way up, it would just be too cost prohibitive.
It's not something. Yeah, we'd have about 800 or 900 feet, linear feet, by at least 6 feet high.
And I guess I'm struggling with it just because I mean it's rendered different than the color image, and I know of course that's always hard to get right. So
Sure.
is it meant to match the brick?
It's meant to come as close to the existing brick color as we can get. So that basically right now it's bright white. So the area that is this cornice element is bright white with a horizontal line in the middle of it, a shadow line. And so it contrasts a great deal with the brick. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to play that down and have the cornice. I mean, not that it's ever going to go away entirely, but we want to play down the cornice element. So that's the intent. And the color matching, it's very hard to represent in this, but yes, the intent is that we'll be very close to the existing brick.
Michael, I mean, I think that was it for me for the questions. I did want to just see if I mean, I'm the only one who's bothered by it, but it just
No, it's on my list, Brian.
Okay. Okay.
It's tricky because I'm like, I hate painting precast, but I'm like, is it almost like, would that be better? I don't know. I mean, what I worry is that these panels are going to end up sticking out. Like, what's that profile look like, Pete? Like, is it there like a furring strip that then these things are going to get screwed into, so it's going to project even farther out?
It's a furring strip, and it's a very thin panel. It's a very narrow assembly. And so what'll happen is the assembly will sit on the topmost face, and then we'll have to fur out at the bottom of the cornice to create a continuous
You guys
plane.
study actually following the step? Like, what is that step right now? Like 2 inches?
I think it's 1.5 inches. We have not. I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. This has been raised from a very early stage in the design. We've been asked to conceal it. We've thrown out painting it. We've thrown out replacing it with brick. And
because I mean, the Luca bonds are not going to be a cheap solution. So
but no one wants to repaint it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where we've been. But no, apparently another one of these vintage of schools was done with the same approach with a white metal panel. But in that project, white metal panel was used pretty much ubiquitously as an accent as the actual body of the addition. So in those situations, it actually projected out much further. By the end of the day, it projected out like almost 8 inches. We're trying to keep this as low profile as possible because we think that popping out further than the absolute minimum is just going to draw more and more attention to it.
And does it step out at the very top piece a little bit? Looks like there's a little detail that it projects out.
Yeah, there's right at the very parapet, there's another tweak to it, but it's relatively subtle. But yeah, if we go back to see if I can find the photograph. If you go back to the cover sheet, first photo, first sheet, Alashonda, if you zoom in on, there's a picture of the building directly under the site plan. You need to go to the right of the site below, and right there, you can see this is the profile. So basically, this is a very bright off-white concrete, and the profile that you're seeing is really, it's the metal gravel stop flashing, and you'll see it's really about 1.5 to 2 inches offset in plane around the middle of that thing.
And you guys have looked at it from using the actual sandstone color that you're using with the metal pond everywhere else? Yes, we have. We'd rather not do that. We just think it throws another element into the project. But if it's a matter of color, I just was throwing that out there just because you mentioned that other project where they used, a lot of, the same metal panel color, and I didn't know if that would. I don't know if it conceals it like what the school is requesting, really, because in reality, it's you're trying to conceal it by just matching the brick color. Whereas if you use the gray or the sandstone, the sandstone's going to be obviously a contrast to the brick. I just didn't know, with all the new windows and everything, is that going to help? Is it gonna help it integrate better?
We did look at it having been the same color as the proposed metal panel, but we just don't have enough metal panel on the project, I think, to get that center of gravity to really change the character of the building. So the other project was able to do additions on many sides of the building, and so there were lots of new construction to conceal. And then because they used the white metal panel in the body of the building, there was a lot more of it, period.
Yeah. I do think the entrance is successful with taking the brick up, up past the first level or first floor height. Well, I guess there's no second floor there, but I think that looks better than where it was all panel beforehand. So I thought that then kind of created a smaller band of metal panel that then was similar to, kind of if you use that to conceal it. But it's a tough situation, Brian. So I don't have a solution either. But it was definitely think it's a point of discussion.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the explanation very much, that it's meant to match the brick as close as possible. And obviously with renderings in reality, it looks a little bit different. So I appreciate that. And I guess you didn't want to do like maybe a full height panel. Is the height too much? And that's where you were concerned with the oral?
Yeah, the panels are 6 feet. And if we looked at a 2-foot by 6-foot panel, we just thought it was very vertical. And really, any of the panel dimensions really getting over 3 feet in any direction, we're kind of worried about oil canning with the products that are specified, because the gauge of the metal is not very robust.
Anything else, Brian?
No, nothing else.
So a couple quick things. The lights for the wall packs. It seems like we're increasing the number of wall packs dramatically. Do you know what the spacing is on those, just roughly? Because it seems like there's an overload of them based on what they have now. They look like they maybe are every.
If you could just go to the lighting plan, LaShonda.
30, 40 feet. Here they look like they're almost going every 20 feet. I just didn't know if you could tell me what that orb on that photometric, what dimension that.
I'm trying to. It's sheet 21. If you can get to sheet 21.
Slide 21, yeah.
If you just zoom in on one of those blue ellipses or at the perimeter of the building, Uh, those, the roadway out in front is about 24 feet wide. So I think that each one of these ellipses is about 24 to 22 feet. So I think that's the spacing.
Yeah. Just it
And-
seems
and-
like some of the perimeter where we don't have doorways and we don't really have kind of entrances. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of lighting going on. Like
Well,
they
I
show
mean-
all packs around the library as an example, like on that corner there. And I'm thinking like that's a beautiful library with all glass. Like where are all those lights even going to be mounted? Is it all going to be mounted on that?
Those will have to go to soffit units. So that's not going to work. Sure. I don't disagree. I mean, I know this is, I can work with the lighting engineer to study how we could change it. This is a very bright lighting, and I think that's intentional to deter vandalism and or theft. But it's much brighter than is required by code. So I could ask FCPS if they're willing to
It's
reconsider.
just something that they could look at, especially like, obviously around the library. Like in reality, I don't even think they're going to be able to fit that many lights. And so it's making it appear that it's going to be much brighter than it is when, I'd let that library be a beacon, itself and just have a little bit of lighting, in the soffit or something, a couple down lights or something. But that's the only thing that jumped off at me when I saw it. I just, the street lighting is good. That's, there's good spacing on that. There's not a ton of overlap. I think it's, it's adequate. Whereas this just seems like it's a little overkill. And so there's like 3 lights on one face of the building there on one part of the building. So we could easily go down to 1 or 2. And I think that would be just a little bit more successful. My other thought was for the HVAC screening, I appreciate you putting together all the diagrams. I personally do still think it's going to be an issue. I'm not going to fight you on it. I just personally don't like looking at HVAC units. It's just something that is painful when there's all this money spent on a project and then, the couple $1,000 louver is not put up. And it just, the units are just not the prettiest thing. And you have, cut sheets of them all so people can see them, what they look like. And, you have the tree in the image here, which, it doesn't exist now. And it's going to be a 2-inch caliper. So it's going to take,
It'll take
15
a while,
years
sure.
before that tree looks like that. And so that would be those specifically where that tree is probably the only area that I think you could do one big L, that's maybe, 20 feet long on the edge side and then return it maybe 10, 12 feet and just put one big L that could kind of help deter. Looking at, there's like 4 units that are kind of packaged all together there.
Could we go to slide 19? I can't quite follow which
Where
tree.
you have, yeah. So there's the, go to the plan, please. There's like 4 units that are all kind of pretty close together right above the loading dock.
The next slide should have a plan.
Yeah, so if you zoom in on that plan there, please, there's like 4 right there where the cursor just was, right above the loading dock. And I was just thinking you could do like an L-shaped screen. You don't need to screen them all completely around like what you show. If you just did a screen along the edge of the roof, not the edge of the roof, but step back and just did like a 20-foot section, then had a return of maybe 10 feet or so towards where this other side, that side. That way, from where your point of view is up at the field, most of those are screened. All the other ones I think are far enough back. I wouldn't worry about any of the other ones. It's really just, kind of creating a little L there, I think would be successful at screening those four units that are there. I don't know if those are the VRF systems, if they're the DOAS, I don't know. But I just thought doing something like that could be successful, and it's only 1 or 2 screens versus 20 or whatever we show now.
Najib, do you want to weigh in on that? I mean, it seems like it's a much more limited scope.
He's muted.
I just asked him to unmute.
Najib is with Fairfax County, Pete.
Correct.
Mhm.
He's the project manager for Fairfax County.
Najib, you're
Hello.
on mute.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for the great insight on this one, on your comments. This is Najib Hamid with Fairfax County Public School. Thank you so much, Mike, for Michael Ode, Mr. Ode, about the proposed screening on that. But again, I would like to discuss this with Pete about feasibility of that screening, because if we put that screening on that area, we should make sure that it shouldn't block because we have like kind of labeling on each floor, right? So we have to get like access to the other roof as well. And the feasibility of that screen is important. And also, if we would make sure that how much we will screen those units from if we look from the field, which I don't know, like is it worth to add that one at this time, because it wouldn't be shown from the human perspective, but it will be only shown from the field, which is like 3 feet high on that, and you can see all units from that perspective. And also, you mentioned about that adding trees might block those from the field. That would be another solution that we can exercise as well. But yeah, the feasibility of that screen might be a question right now for me when I look at that, the shape of the L to add there.
I mean, the roofs in question, Najib, just so you're clear, the roofs in question are pretty much flat with respect to each other. There might be a small step between the back of the stage and the administration suite, the old administration suite. But I think if we had a north-facing louver that was above, was just to the north of these two topmost units, and then we had a louver on the east side of those two units that ran down to basically where we're doing the new dormer clear story, I think that would successfully block all 4 of those units from 90% of the viewing points, including the elevated areas.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth it personally, just because, I mean, I only know about this school very much because my son uses the field a lot for soccer and whatnot, and I've always seen the roof up there, but now all of a sudden there's going to be all this HVAC equipment, so it's a much different look, and so I just think it'd be worth it in the long run. I am open to more tree screening and stuff up there if that's what you guys would prefer. You guys can weigh the financial impacts of either. And maybe you can, look at it, but I do think a screen would be worth it. I'm thinking, Pete, just like a blade, louvered blade, whatever,
Yeah.
5 degree that just matches the metal panels that you have, the sandstone. I think
Yeah.
would look really nice. So, those are my comments. Does anybody have any other further questions? We want to do some further discussion. Is there a motion? And Pete, you're looking for final approval.
Yeah,
which,
that's what we'd like. Sure.
even with some feedback like what we've given, we can still offer final approval, but then require certain elements to come back to us. So that way you guys can still feel comfortable moving forward with, I don't know where you are with permitting or, whatever you're moving, how the schedule looks. Would that help you to get kind of a overall approval and then have a couple elements that you may need to bring back based on some of the comments we've had tonight?
I think, if your reservations are considerable, I think, and we need to come back, we'd much rather get everything signed off. Sure. Everything that you don't find objectionable, we'd certainly like to have approved. I guess I would just like to, I would like to make sure that we're as focused and limited in terms of the things you want us to follow up on as practical or reasonable.
Okay. Does anyone want to have some further discussion? Brian, did you come up with a brilliant idea for those panels in the last 10 minutes while I was rambling?
Sadly, I have not.
I'm sure Pete's noodled that for the last 6
Yeah.
months.
For a little bit. Yeah. I would love to take them off and put brick up. I would love to. I just know it's not in the budget.
Yeah. So I can get over those. I think it is what it is. I think the pattern of the 2 over or the 1 over 1, let's call it, or those are basically equal square panels almost, right, Pete? They're basically squares. Is that
They're slightly oblong.
slightly-
I think they're 24 by 36.
by 36? Yeah. I mean, I think what they have there, I think is maybe the best solution that can come out of that. I personally think the lighting around the perimeter needs to be adjusted. I think Emily made some good points on the trees. I think there are some things we could have there. Overall, though, the design to me is an improvement. I think the entrance looks great with the updates. The library still is a great focal point. I think that's going to be a really great feature of this project when it's all built. The kids are gonna love that. I know I was interested in architecture as a kid, so I'm sure that might even pique some interest in architecture for the kids. So
we can only hope.
We're a dying breed. So I would say, does anyone have any further questions, or am I okay to make a motion? Hearing none, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the application with the following amendments, which will require follow-up. I would like an updated photometric study showing less wall packs and actual lighting conditions for some of the perimeter that seems to be overkill. The site lighting is fine, but just the wall pack specifically. I would like to see a proposal for the screening that we spoke about for the north side and east side for that back portion of the building only. And then to look at tree replanting plan for the hill area, I guess on the hill between the ball fields and the basketball courts, as well as tree saving efforts for the 2 20-inch plus diameter tulip poplars that are essentially just getting taken out due to grading. I think we can fix that grading a little bit with the use of retaining walls to help try to save those 2 large mature trees. Those are my amendments. Does anyone have any questions on those?
I just want to make sure I have the right numbers for those 2 trees.
I have them at
3073 and
I think it's 3170.
3170. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I do want to make a possible amendment to the current motion that we would like to see a 1-for-1 tree replacement in the areas that were mentioned. I would like to see a tree preservation plan that includes a 1-to-1 replacement. And it looks like Lasandra has a hand raised.
Yes, I was hoping that the DRB could establish a completion timeline, especially if it's going to differ from the standard 18 months. In addition, would like clarity on the timeline for the temporary trailers if they don't align with the project timeline.
So we'll get to timeline in a second. Before we jump around. So
Sure.
Emily, for your amendment, are you saying 1-for-1 for every single tree impacted in the property on the property, or just in the because in some of them that are in like the that are directly in the drive aisle, let's call them in the new Kiss and Ride. Are you looking for 1-for-1 for all of those trees as well as what you're suggesting?
Yes, and to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised that Fairfax County is not mandating this. It's typical on a new project that we do a canopy replacement, which means that it doesn't matter if it's 5 dogwoods or 1 sycamore, that the canopy be maintained and be replaced in kind. So I would like to see that on this project going forward, that we are replacing the canopy coverage at a 1-to-1 ratio moving forward, especially with the amount of trees that we're taking out for superfluous reasons.
Do you guys have a canopy coverage calculation on what you're putting back?
Do not. We do not.
Not yet. I mean, when they put it through to Fairfax County and they get the grading plan, it will probably be required, but I would like it to be a requirement of us as well.
What's tough with the amendment, I would say, is we don't 1-for-1 sometimes. This property is unique. I think I would be okay with not a direct 1-for-1, but I think potentially there does need to be, obviously those areas we've talked about that have the ability to have trees put back, where we're just taking them out for fencing or for, slight asphalt, paving. I think that, to me, it's silly that we even have we should put those back. So I would figure out if there's a way that we can do a balance, because I think 1-for-1 is going to be tough with this site. Cam may have a weighing in idea.
Our understanding is that it may be a requirement from the county as they go through the process. And so if the DRB is interested in following that process, I believe that the applicant can request a waiver through Fairfax County, but since they haven't gone through the process yet.
Well, actually, let me just clarify where the project is. The project actually is in our last phase of PRC review. We were approved last week by the Planning Commission or unanimously approved to go to the Board of Supervisors May 21st, I believe. Similarly, we're on our second of 3 rounds of permit comments, and these haven't come up. So we've had quite a few eyes on the set, and this hasn't been identified to date.
And that's the site plan round of comments?
PRC is the site plan.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I did want to raise, is that commercial and civic rulings with Fairfax County have slightly different rulings than what we would normally put forth for residential as the DRB. They're not always 1-for-1 because they're trying to do larger civic projects. And that is something, I mean, we've seen an arborist statement. They have an arborist for this project. We've seen a plant schedule put forth, and I would like to see a plant schedule that takes into consideration the fact that we are losing a significant amount of canopy coverage, even if Fairfax County does not want to put that into effect, just because of the large amount of trees, this is a large site, we're losing a large amount of trees. And I do feel like there's plenty of room to reinstate that canopy coverage. And we're not saying, hey, you have to put in, a 20-foot tree. We're saying the same thing that we say to every person in Reston: 2-inch caliper, native, non-invasive species. We say it all the time. I would like to see that 1-for-1 coverage implemented on this site. And I think it's doable, looking at the amount of disturbed area and, possibly an increase in the budget, but also it's a investment in the future of this property to make sure that the canopy is properly restored.
So what I will accept as an amendment, and it's just more kind of clarifying, I would say, would be that a tree canopy study be submitted that is, I don't want to say 1-for-1, but is a general equivalent reforestation of the site. And you may be able to prove it in that reforestation area that maybe spots haven't quite grown in yet, right? You may be able to plant some more trees over there as an example. There may be ways to tackle it, right? But get with the arborist and the civil and see if there's a way to do it. But I don't want to put the one-to-one language on the motion on the amendment, Emily, but I do want to say kind of general equal reforestation canopy, in 20-year coverage or whatever. Is it 20-year coverage is what normally they say, right? So that's I will amend the motion to have that amendment. My motion, however, is still on the table. It has not been seconded. Any other further discussion, or does anyone want to second it?
Second.
All right. So now we have a second. Now we can have some further discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts on it? Everyone understand the motion? So the timeline discussion that LaShonda threw out there, I think she's asking that because the project's going to take longer than 18 months. Pete, is this like a 2-year job, 3-year job? What's the timeline look like? Oh, is he talk? Hold on, Pete. Sorry, you're muted. I don't know. Is he?
There you go. Yes, I was muted. The anticipated construction timeline that trailers would need to be in place would be from the beginning of construction, the end of the summer before the beginning of construction through the end of the summer of completion, which is really, it's 2 years and maybe 1 month or something like that, because the trailers typically go up a little bit early and they don't come down immediately, but it's 2-year duration. This is a 2-year construction effort.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll amend the motion to include a timeline for the trailers to be 30 months. And that they would need to come back for approval if for some reason they need to stay longer. And then LaShonda, you said you needed an approval timeline for the whole project. I would say if it's not completed within 36 months, that they would need to, renew it or whatever the process is. John, do you accept amendments?
I accept the amendment.
All right. Any other further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
I'm so sorry. I need another point of clarification. So I just want to make sure. So we're approving the DRB is approving everything except for the lighting to get a photo study, HVAC screening, and the replanting
just
plan.
for the wall packs. Just the wall packs. The site lighting is fine.
The street lighting is fine.
The street lighting is fine. The wall packs are what needs to be restudied. The screening on just that L that we've talked about on the north and east side, and then the tree mitigation effort for those 2 large caliper 3073 and 3170. And then a tree reforestation canopy 20-year coverage study.
And those items are to come back to the full DRB.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes 6-0. All right. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and effort and contributions. Thank you.
Appreciate your time as well. It's always a great presentation. So there's always everything we need on here. So
great.
I appreciate your work that you do for it as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 11500 Old Tiverton. Looks like this is signage package.
It is, yes.
All right. So if you guys could walk us through the signs that you're replacing, kind of the colors, the sizes, etc. And then I believe we have some affected or interested parties that will then get their time to speak after you present, and then we'll have some discussion. So
Okay, great.
take it away.
Hi, my name's Bronwyn Hirschberger. I'm with the DSF group, and we are proposing to rebrand some of the signage, existing signage there, to the Halsted Reston. If LaShonda, do you mind doing the next slide?
You can start on page 21.
Okay, sounds good. So this is the first sign we're proposing for redesign. When reviewing the design guidelines, we tried to really stick with in what was existing. So again, keeping the mounting of the sign as originally designed, but updating it with a more durable material. So you would have a bottom white base. We'd apply our sign to that with raised aluminum letters and then a cap, just modernizing it a little bit, but still keeping within the same size of the existing sign. This sign is located on Reston Parkway, as well as Center Harbor. If you'd like to move on to the next slide, that's just a more detailed look at that sign. Then the next sign is kind of a combo sign with Timberview. We're proposing to replace this sign, introducing our logo as well as Halsted Reston, and then adding a lighter blue under the Halsted white lettering. Again, aluminum raised letters on this, as well as the H logo will be raised as well. But again, keeping within the sizes that are existing. And then the final, well, one of the final major signs is our main sign entering into the property. Again, keeping with the theme of what we're proposing, introducing the raised aluminum letters here, as well as the raised H, and just again modernizing it a little bit throughout the property. The branding would continue into our property. This is our leasing office sign. We would replace the posts as well as the caps on the posts. They would go blue, and then introducing the Halsted Reston scheme. None of the signs that we're proposing are increasing in size. That's just a blow up of that sign, replacing the building number signs with something a little bit more updated. We would replace the wood posts with a PVC post for durability. This is a directional sign, same thing. Another directional. And then replacing just kind of no trespassing, towing, enforced signs throughout the property. Speed limit sign. And then this is our building ID signs that are applied to the building. But again, keeping within the same side. And these are our unit numbers inside all the buildings. And those are the colors we're proposing. And that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me hear from the affected parties, and then we'll come back and ask you any questions, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Staff, do you have the affected parties that wanted to speak?
Yes.
Just as a reminder, affected parties have 3 minutes to state their affected party status, and staff is controlling that time. So,
And to add, if you're representing a cluster, you will have 5 minutes to speak.
correct.
So first we have Samantha Gold. You've been unmuted.
Actually, LaShonda, Frank Tobias is going to speak for our cluster. If you can unmute him. Thanks.
Sure. Okay.
Hi there, Frank Tobia with the Halstead Glen cluster on the board, and I'll represent us. And yeah, we well, I don't think the name is on the books, but I'll complain about it anyway. Like we have the same name, so that's going to be confusing. But on the topic of the the signage change, just pointing out that it doesn't match any of the signage around here. It's concrete with I don't know what the metal is, but all of the signs, the monument signs, kind of look the same, and this one is going to stand out pretty garishly. So we want to encourage, keeping with the existing designs of all the other signs in the area, and I think that's most of it. I don't know, Samantha, if you had other stuff you wanted to mention. Just design style should match kind of what's already here, and also the naming is going to be confusing.
Anything
else you
okay,
wanted
sorry.
to say?
No, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. But yeah, I agree, and I definitely do feel that the naming is going to be a problem with having us so close. And a new name right behind us. Kind of, we fear that deliveries and stuff like that are probably going to get misdirected with Halstead. There, it's just one turn before ours off of Center Harbor.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the next affected party, we have Timberview Cluster, care of Laura and Tucker Barrett. Laura, you're unmuted.
Okay, perfect. I am on the board at Timberview, and I've actually reached out to the company and tried to, because we've done this same kind of wayfinding change and monument sign change in Timberview pretty recently. I reached out to them to kind of let them know what challenges we had and kind of what the look and feel of Timberview is, because they are coming from a different city. I wanted to explain to them, Reston is a little bit different. We do care about, kind of keeping within the look and feel throughout the different clusters, and that in particular, their monument signs are really off base when you look at what everything else looks like around us. And also just the materials that they plan on using were probably not appropriate for those two signs. And so we talked about that. And then we also talked about the shared sign that we have, which is an issue on its own because it looks like it's on our property and we're the ones that spend the money to maintain it. And it's what I proposed was that we at least work together, because trying to just slap that sign on there above our name is not going to look very good. And then reaching out into our neighborhood and asking for feedback. A lot of the people were saying, you know what, we really don't like that idea at all. And then we kind of looked at, just the ownership of the sign, and it turns out it is on our property, it is our sign. And it is for us, we're thinking we're either going to update it for ourselves and take their name off completely, just because it is so far off, and we've reached out and haven't really come to an agreement on how to work that out. And their proposal was to just have their name on it, and that's not something we want to do. So that kind of, like, in this particular proposal, I think we kind of have to take that shared sign off the table in this, in order for, to really look at it and say, what are the options on that one, and what should we do going forward? Because it's a question for sure. When we redid when we redid all of our other signage, that's not one that we worked on at that particular time. But now, that this has come to our attention, we have some interest in deciding what's most appropriate for that. But I'm also in agreement with Frank on the name is very confusing, and it's probably, like, I don't know how that came about, but it is, like, within a mile. Having two properties with the same name is a concern. But for Timberview and our residents, our biggest concern is just probably like toning down the sign and maybe having some more appropriate colors. I think everything within the inside of the property looks great, but the out facing signs are not. So those are our concerns for sure. And I think Barrett would like to probably add to that.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think when you're looking at the design of what Holstead Reston Apartments is proposing, this is very much like the EXO apartments off of Plaza America, which I know that was outside the purview of the Reston DRB. I think the modernization of the signage and the colors, I don't think it matches with anything else within Reston. And I can tell you that all of that signage on North Village is from the early 90s. And so I know when we redid our monument sign, it was a 6-month project working with designers and the lettering and the stonework. And I feel like that what has been presented from Holstead Reston Apartments, to me, it looks like it's been thrown together. I don't believe that the answer would be to use a metal sign and glue that to the current monument sign that's there. Really, these signs, monument signs on North Village are 30 years old, and it would be my recommendation that the entire monument sign needs to be resurfaced.
Thank you. Let's see. Next we have Myron asking you to unmute. Myron, you are unmuted. Just want to remind you have 3 minutes. Myron, are you there? I'm not really sure what's going on with Myron. We can come back to you. Let's see. Next, we have Dana. Let me see this. I don't believe we have any other affected parties for this application that is present. Let's go back to Myron to see if we can get him unmuted.
Yeah, if they...
Myron, are you there? Hello?
I think they're talking, but can't hear him. Is it Marion? Is that the one you're talking about?
Marion? Yeah, Marion.
I don't know. Can't hear him.
I can't hear him either.
Marion, do you want to try to turn up your mic? You're unmuted. Make sure your mic's on.
I just sent him a message in the chat as well. If you aren't able to speak, please let us know in the chat as well.
Okay. Let's see.
All right.
Well, we'll come back to
Yeah,
him.
see if you can help them maybe dial in or something. We'll come back to them if we have time. Did they submit a statement at least?
Yeah, so his statement is on page 5.
It's on screen now. Oops.
No, you can't come and read. I'm on camera.
Review is the shared sign that we feel would be best updated together for a more cohesive look. The proposed materials for the updated monument sign looks more like a commercial property with the colors and lettering. It does not reflect typical monument signs in Reston. Okay. So we'll try to still get them to weigh in, but we'll move on. Let me go to the board and see if we have any questions for the applicant.
We still have other affected parties.
Oh, okay.
Cam, give me 1 second. So we have a Kelly Toronto. She was not identified, but if you are on the call, if you could please raise your hand. I wasn't able to identify her. Tamara. I was unable to identify that person. And then we have Shabah, and I don't see.
Identify them.
Yeah, okay. And the last person we have RA as an affected party as well.
Hello, it's Cam Adams for on behalf of the Reston Association Board of Directors. I most certainly Reston Association certainly supports Halston Reston in their rebranding efforts. I don't believe there's any concerns with confliction with the design guidelines as it relates to the internal community signage. However, for the DRB's information, if you could go to the next couple of pages, you can see the signage that is in and around the area. This is the existing signage that is off of Center Harbor and North Village. The next sign is Timberview's sign that is off of North Village Road, which is adjacent to the existing community. Next slide. This is the North Hills Park, which is off of Center Harbor, and the North Village intersection. You can see that there's a kind of cohesiveness and harmoniousness of the materials being used for all of the neighborhood signs. If you could go to the next slide. This is Sutton Ridge, which is a condominium association, which is right down North Village from the community neighborhood. If you can go to the next slide. This is the shared monument wall that Mrs. Dunmeyer was discussing from Timberview as it relates to being shared, and it is on the Timberview Cluster Association common area. If you could go to the next slide. This is Devonshire and Windsor Park, which is off of North Village, which is adjacent to the Sutton Ridge Condo Association. You can see the continuity of the design and the materials being used. And if you could go to the next slide. This is the sign that is off of the other side of, I believe it's Reston Parkway, and don't quote me on it, but this is the outside end of where North Village ends on the other side of Center Harbor Parkway at the opposite end. I can't remember the cross street.
I think that's off Wheelie, Cam.
Yes, Wheelie. Sorry, I live in Chantilly, not Reston, unfortunately. So those are all of the neighborhood signs within the community that is in that area off that main thoroughway and that in the North Village Drive. So you can see that there is some continuity amongst the signs. And so we would just encourage the applicant to look at that and consider those as potential options and avenues as they go throughout their planning process. Unfortunately, Reston Association cannot control the naming of the community. That is the property owner's right to determine how they go about that process. But most certainly would encourage them to, keep the lines of communication open with the members that are reaching out to them.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Anybody else before?
Uh, We had an interested party, if Cynthia or Tom Flynn are on the call, but I don't see them. So if you're here, if you could raise your hands. If not, that would be all. No hands raised.
All right, cool. Then I will move forward. So let me go around the room, see if anyone has any questions for the applicant, and then we will have some discussion. John, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Camelia, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I had one question. It's on, I don't know exactly which page it is. I know it's on page 4 from the DSF group, so towards the end, LaShonda. I just want to confirm just generally, okay, which one is it? Okay, number 24, page 24, please. So are you literally just going to take out the St. John's Wood sign and put this over and keep the pillars? Like, is that the idea?
Yes, that is the idea.
Okay.
And it has a border. It's a 3-dimensional sign, so it does have a border to it. The H will be proud of the border, and then the letters are also dimensional as well.
Are the letters going to be like, what's the word? Like reflected in the night? Like, are they just
No,
like plain
there's
letters?
an uplight from the bottom, so the whole sign will glow at night. We're not replacing that. That's in good working order at this point. So the whole sign will be illuminated.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's just that was my question for now. So basically you are not going to be removing like the actual structures, the pillars, the wood posts, what have you. You're just going to be slapping Halston Reston over what is already there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions.
Mike?
I don't have any questions at this point. I don't take any real umbrage with the signage interior to, the parcel, the community, et cetera. But I don't have any questions at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. Emily? Emily, you're muted still. She can't unmute. Oh, it's probably because you dropped off and then need to be.
I'm back. Sorry, my computer wanted to restart itself. I don't have a question per se, except for what's wrong with serif font. I feel like that could boil down this entire conversation of, I don't have a problem with the dark blue. I don't have a problem with even the new logo or the name. I don't know what anything is, I don't know what goes into that. I just feel like the addition of the very spaced out sans serif font is the thing that is causing klaxons to go off in a lot of our heads, because that's the commonality that we're seeing throughout the neighborhood, that and the brown and beige color palette. But I think you could choose brown and beige sans serif or blue and serif font, and we could find something of a happy middle ground. That's my comment. It's not a question. It's just what I'm seeing.
Okay. I mean, we could argue about text for days, right? So let's we'll table that. Brian?
No questions.
So my question is for the one internal sign, the speed limit sign was one question I had. So your intention is to brand every speed limit sign inside of this property?
Yes, we would they are branded already with the old colors from St. John's. So we would rebrand it.
Well, colors, yes, but I think your speed limit sign has like the name.
Yes, we have the Halsted
and the logo on every single speed limit sign.
Yeah, I mean, that is not something like we're hard fast on. We could just introduce our colors and not do the Halsted brand
Mhm.
on that.
Okay.
As long as we can repeat the colors throughout the community, which
I
kind
think
of,
the colors are a good selection. I think the colors work well. They work well with also Timberview on that one sign. Like I think we couldn't. I think the colors work well. So I'm assuming is there going to be an overall rebranding with actual painting of the structures in the future, or are you guys just
we won't be
now just
painting the
colors and then-
exterior of the buildings, but we are redoing the clubhouse. And
Okay.
then we will be coming back to you for some site new additions we'd like to propose, but we'll leave that till next time.
Okay. All right. No other questions for you then.
And
So
if I could
Okay.
just talk to the issue of the Halsted. The Halsted is our brand that we use nationwide for the DSF group. So it's not something, unfortunately, that we can change. It's for every one of our buildings are branded with Halsted, whether it's Fair Oaks or Dulles, or, we also have Halsted Merrifield. So it is part of our company branding,
So it
unfortunately.
just is a coincidence that there's Halsted
Yes,
cluster
it is.
right down the lane.
Yes.
All right. And let me go around. We might come back to you for some questions. But let me go around, see if anyone has comments, thoughts on I think essentially it's going to be the monument signs that have a lot of the inconsistencies with the surroundings. So I would say, John, did you have any any further comments or about the signage?
I realize that there's a company image that they're trying to impose with the signs. But I would say that if we could keep the monument sign just where it's visible from the main streets of Reston to something that more coordinates with the other signs in the neighborhood, that would be better. Internally, I have no problem with what they're proposing to do.
Camelia, did you have anything else?
I just want to say that I echo what John just said. I echo all the comments by the affected parties. I understand what the company is trying to do, but at the same time, I feel like they don't need to put this whole brand new sign on. Of course, they can rebrand and rename St. John's Wood, but the blue is just not working with the natural surroundings and the other surrounding neighborhoods. Instead, I would honestly just take the St. John's Wood lettering off and put the Halsted Reston lettering and logo on the wood or concrete, whatever it is, instead of having this like flashy blue sign, because it looks very commercialized and I would say really does not blend in with the natural surroundings of Reston. And we're always trying to make sure that things blend well, and this is just not doing that, unfortunately.
Okay. Mike?
No, I mean, my same point. I have no problem with anything that's internal, right? Internal to the neighborhood. I had no exception there. So, yeah.
Emily, any further thoughts?
Nope, just what I echoed earlier. I would internal, not a problem, just the big signs for the neighborhood. I do feel like I echo my colleagues' sentiments.
Okay. And then Brian.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have the most problem with kind of where it's combined with like the Timberview signage. Nothing new to add, but I just don't I don't think it's harmonious kind of with the neighborhood settings, and I'm not really in favor of it.
Okay, so let's kind of go sign by sign for the exteriors, just because the monument signs, let's call them. So slide 21, staff. I think this is 21. All right, so I just want to go one by one so we can have some constructive feedback. This one overall, a lot of the signs, so this one's a little unique because not all of them have kind of a double signage like that. A lot of them have more the monument signs, and then this is no one really has kind of a secondary monument sign like this one is. I would like the wood, personally, I like the wood vernacular to kind of remain and just kind of, they can still do all the colors and the raised letters, and if they want to do a blue background with the white lettering, I think that would be fine. I just think simply putting it into a more kind of similar arrangement that's there now, it's tough to tell because this is just, I don't know what it's done in, but it looks like it's just done in, PDF software or something that's just showing flat colors and flat letters. So it makes it very stark in comparison to the other sign. And so it might be a graphical, representation. But what is your feeling on, what is the board's feeling on this sign? Is this okay? What tweaks does it need? What's anyone's ideas here?
I mean, my take, Michael, for what it's worth, I mean, it's the secondary piece, right? If the materials are consistent, I don't really have a problem with this as the secondary bit.
Okay. Like I can see if they want to get rid of the fluted, trim that's on the side, because it's not, they're trying to modernize their look. If they wanted to go to flat wood trim as an example, go to flat casing, you could do a more modern style crown, and it could actually be kind of a nice, I mean, you could go to a square crown too. That's fine if that's, but I think keeping in that wood family, I think will help soften the effect of the sign. And to me, what they have, graphically will work. It's just, I think it's throwing people off because it's just shown as, kind of hard text.
Maybe that's enough of a bridge, Michael, from the internal pieces out to the joint signage. I don't, maybe.
Yeah. Is the applicant, can you guys unmute the applicant? Is there a way you guys can graphically show this a little bit more realistic from to help people understand kind of fully? Do you understand kind of what we're saying with some of the wood trim around it and stuff? Just kind of, you can modernize it, but still keep it the same materials, and kind of give the reveals for the letters. I think it'll really help the community kind of understand exactly what you guys are doing there.
Sure, we can do that.
Because I think this sign has a little more leeway than the other monument signs that are in the precast, because the precast is pretty consistent in the area. But this sign, I think you guys can have a little bit more play with, in my opinion. So that's for that sign. So let's go to the next one. So 2 slides down, Steph. I think simply this one just needs to be the letters, either Halsted Reston or no logo, or it needs to just, I know this is the shared sign, so there's some contention of whether this signage can even, I don't know, I'm not going to get involved in that. But if there were, the feedback I would have on this is, luckily Timberview's lettering is actually pretty similar coloring. I would do some sort of blue lettering. Maybe that's identical to what's there now. That just says Halsted Reston, 2 lines, call it a day. And it's, it's fitting on the existing precast. Get that sucker power washed, and I think it'll fit in. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on this sign?
You're right about the Timberview, and this image it is kind of blue, which is interesting. I think the blue, if you go like the next slide, I think we'll see it more. I don't know if that they've settled on that rebranding colors, but it just doesn't seem to fit with these nicer signs where it's got the stone and the brick. So I almost want to start with like these signs that we're seeing on the screen, because that's what we see throughout the neighborhood a little bit more, and see what works with these signs and then apply it elsewhere.
Maybe do need to go here. I think you maybe do need to go back to the black, just to stay consistent. Or I don't know if we have a picture of it, but Cam in his presentation showed how Timberview recently redid their sign, and they did that black background. Yeah. So this sign used to, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it used to look very similar to these signs, and that they rebranded it recently with this arrangement, where they kind of restoned it and got rid of the brick. And I don't know if someone from Timberview is on here. Staff, does that sound right? I thought there was an application somewhat within the last few years to redo this. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
Not off the top of my head. I would have to do a little research. Give me one moment. I can look it up.
It does, but I just unmuted Laura. Laura, do you have it?
Thank you. Yeah, we did redo that one. And actually I reached out to this company and actually gave them our vendor that we used so that we could kind of just try to stay consistent because we're right across the street. So they do have that information and they're, that it's a great vendor. We're really happy with them. And if we can give them all the materials lists and everything else. And I just want to go back to that shared sign. And I don't want to harp on it, but that's another one where I said we can work together on it. And in researching it, it is our sign. And so if we can't come to a conclusion that we can make a cohesive list, Timberview is most likely just going to take their name off of our sign.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that thought, if they're held up where they really don't want to just do, Halsted Reston as black lettering on the signage, I think there is a way that you can update the sign. It's going to require a lot more money with, kind of creating that, but this sign is beautiful and looks, very well even though it's different than some of the other monument signs, it is very similar. Emily, you have something? She's muted again. Steph, can you guys make her a co-host so she can unmute? Please.
Yeah, sure.
Hey guys, so I would propose a subtle change that might help things. One of the things you'll notice is the Timberview, the beautiful photo that we're looking at here, has that stack stone look, but they've gone with a bluestone cap, and that's bringing in a subtle touch of blue to the actual design element that they have here. And that would be a way to make things a little bit more cohesive if we're looking at the signage of the existing, where there's that brick kind of roll lock up at the top. I mean, yes, it would be slightly more expensive, but going through and adding in on the main header where there's these brick touches, just simply taking that brick heading off, adding a bit of bluestone would start to make it feel a little bit more cohesive with the Timberview across the street without even touching on the stacked stone kind of detail that we're looking at. Particularly if we look at slide 24, you can see here, again, we've got that build stone kind of mosaic tile, the brick roll lock up at the top. If we're looking at a way to tie these two together, I could see that being an option of doing a nice thick bluestone cap that is starting to pull in those blue font elements in a way that's feeling very naturalistic, because bluestone, flagstone is a natural material that we do have here in Reston that we use a lot to echo natural materials, and it would start to pull in those blue elements without feeling too modern, I say, with a sense of timeless materials. Of stone is considered a timeless material, and I think that'd be one way to relatively affordably tie the projects together, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's good feedback. So I think there's, some on this sign, I think the easy button is just try to match exactly what's there with black lettering, as an example, on the existing precast. Or if you're trying to update it a little bit with a different colored background, as an example, you may need to introduce some other elements to help it be more cohesive, very similar to the new Timberview sign that's across the street. So I think that's really all the monument signs. I'm going to I think we should just separate the package. I personally think all those speed limit signs don't need to be branded. I think it's way too much branding. Once you're inside of the community, I think you know where you are at that point. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just think it's overkill.
I think the bigger you make the speed limit numbers, the better. So the less branding and the larger that sign is, the better.
Yeah. John, do you have something?
No.
So what I'm going to do is I will make a motion to approve the internal signage with the amendment that the speed limit sign have the branding be removed and just match the existing. It can be the same, colors and everything that they're proposing, but just updating that to just be numbers and speed limit only. And then removing the monument signs from the application. So there's 3 of them. The 3 ones that are all with the masonry or brick, from the application to require further study, along with wherever that first one, that wood monument sign to require further study as well. So I guess there's 1, 2, 3 monument signs that need to have further study on them, and then come back with an updated submission.
Okay, that sounds good.
Is there a second or any questions on my motion?
Michael, I'm just concerned that if they change the monument signs, like maybe they'll change the internal signs so that they match for their branding. So I'm worried if we approve the internal signs, then maybe it's not going to match the monument signs.
Is the coloring pretty, Bronwyn, is the coloring pretty set? Like those are your guys' colors, right? She's muted again, Steph. Can you guys?
Yes, it is. Could we put a stipulation in there if, we decide to change the colors, that we can come back and show you the.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you do change the colors, you gotta tell us anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Brian, I think it's a valid concern, but I think it's at least letting them. I think personally the internal signs are fine, minus the 1 speed limit one, and so I'm okay with giving them an approval now. I think ultimately they want the monument signs to be changed. They don't want to have St. John Woods out there, so they're going to come up with an idea on how to get those back into kind of general conformance of all the other in the area. So I don't know if it matters necessarily one way or the other. Just trying to give them a little bit of a jump ahead on getting that they have a little bit approved. So does anyone want to second my motion, or we can let it die?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion beyond?
Question, will there be a time frame that they would have to come back with those?
No.
Oh.
I guess technically, since we're improving part of the application, I guess we should. Because I don't want them to replace all the signs on the internal and not match the external. So, we can require them to submit redesigns within 6 months of the approval letter for the internal. John, do you accept that?
Yes.
All right. Any other further question? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against?
Against.
Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes 5-1-0. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Piney Run tributary. I guess this is Reston submitting it, but I think it's Fairfax County doing the work.
That is correct. We have Ben Rhodes and we have Aaron George, both unmuted.
Hi there. So I don't know. believe I met you all most recently for an issue over at Harbor Point, but I'm Ben Rhodes. I'm the watershed manager for the Reston Association. Reston's applying for this because it is on Reston property, but we are working with Fairfax County as they are designing and working towards a stream restoration in North Reston, adjacent to Center Harbor Road, Lamplighter Way. And I will let Aaron George, the project manager for the program, kind of take it away and talk a little bit more about why they want to do this restoration and the plans for the restoration.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, like Ben said, my name's Aaron George. I'm a project coordinator with Fairfax County Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, Stormwater Planning Division. With Ben, we've also got Susie Foster, who's a landscape architect on the job from Fairfax County, as well as Lindsay Nicole from McCormick Taylor. She's the design engineering firm project manager, and Mark Goldberg Foss from the Hunter Mill Board of Supervisors District. So if you wouldn't mind, LaShonda, going down to the PowerPoint, I can keep it brief, but run through a slide deck that we had prepared and provided to the community surrounding the project as part of our 65% design plan review. So it's, I think, around 51. Yeah, there we go. Great. So as Ben mentioned, we're here to talk about the Piney Run tributary at Lamplighter Way and Center Harbor Road Stream Restoration Project. You can go to the next slide, LaShonda. Location, we're in the Difficult Run watershed. The project is on Reston Association property or within acquired easements. The main driver for the project will be highlighted with some of the existing conditions photos that we show, but we do have regulatory requirements that we are meeting with the project for our municipal separate stormwater sewer permit, as well as total maximum daily load requirements related to water quality. In addition, we have safety and utility concerns at the site that we will address with our stream restoration. Next slide, please. So, summary of project goals. We're looking to stabilize 1,200 linear feet of stream channel and prevent future erosion from occurring, which will improve water quality through the removal of nutrients and the sediment that is being conveyed downstream from the site. We certainly will have some impacts getting into the site and doing our work, but we will restore an ecosystem by improving the channel, and then any areas that we impact with our project, installing native trees and herbaceous plants, as well as have a thorough invasive plant management strategy both before and after our project is completed. In addition, we're looking to protect sanitary sewer infrastructure, which will be highlighted in some following slides, and as best possible, minimize community and environmental impact proposed with our work, and then continue with open communication with the community that surrounds the project. And Ben and the Hunter Mill office have been a huge support in making sure that we are contacting all of those that are impacted along the access routes as well as along the stream that is being improved. Next slide, please. So highlighting the existing conditions, you can see that we do have very active erosion occurring in the tributary to Piney Run. There are vertical banks with some substantial height, which are continuing to degrade and causing some mass erosion. And they're susceptible to continue that erosion and have slope failure. Next slide. The stream will continue to migrate and widen, as well as realign if left unresolved or without some intervention. Again, this highlights some of those vertical banks as well as some of the tree loss that's occurred. Next slide, please. So again, trees have already been lost adjacent to the stream due to uprooting. They're also losing the root mass under trees that are still standing, which eventually will lead to trees dying in place and eventually uprooting or falling. And that will continue to occur if left unresolved. Next slide, please. And then I touched on the safety and utility concerns, again, vertical banks, and this highlights 2 sanitary sewer crossings that are in the segment of stream that we're improving. These would have been installed below grade, and with the erosion that's occurred, it has undermined the pipes and then it continues to expand. And that horizontal distance and span that it shows there will just continue to worsen if not addressed. So current status of the plan, we are at 65% design plans. We've been keeping the community informed through the design process. We held meetings and a design charrette at the 35% design plan where we did some field stakeout and flagging to highlight the impacts. We repeated that after we acquired adequate easements for the job. And in January, met with the community again on site as well as virtually to present the plan and make sure that there was a good understanding of the proposed work and the proposed impacts of the project. Next slide. Here's some example features of the stream restoration that we'll be applying. You can see here, and in the plans that were submitted as part of the application, you can see this is a visual representation of some of those features that are along the length of the tributary being restored. Next slide. And then here we have existing conditions on the left, and then a proposed conditions rendering on the right. So this gives you a view of some of the pull and reinforcement with reinforced bed material that will come into the stream. We'll be raising the stream back to closer to what would have been existing before the erosion began to occur. And you can see on the left, you have an exposed sanitary line towards the upper portion of the photo within the channel. To the right, it's now under fill and adequately protected. Next slide, please. So just highlighting some elements of the proposed design. One key element is our proposed access. So as well as staging. We're certainly mindful that any stream job, we're in a very environmentally sensitive area and we want to minimize our impacts to the best, as best we can. So what we're proposing to do with this job is access from Center Harbor Road via the Pink Trail, which is a paved trail. So that minimizes our compaction impacts right at the start. There will be additional matting that will be proposed, not only on the trail, but any of the access routes that are shown as we move in and along the site. And what I'm highlighting here was actually prepared to show the community the differences between the 35% design plan on the left and what we're now proposing at 65% design on the right. So LaShonda, you can focus on that. And this shows that we're coming in on the Pink Trail, and then we've got 3 staging areas proposed. We're in a forested condition, but what we do is take a very close look at the vegetative condition within the corridor that we're working. We've done a vegetative inventory assessment, and we've located necessary staging and stockpiling areas in proximity of the work that needs to occur, but also in those low or poor rated areas. So we're prioritizing the better vegetation and stand of forest. And where we do have to have necessary impacts, it is of lower quality and will be replaced, which I'll touch on further slides. In addition, I know that there has been some conversation around the access from Center Harbor Road. There are trees that are adjacent to the access route. We do propose to keep those, and we'll have a thorough tree preservation plan as part of the project, which will armor trees that are within range of potential impact, as well as have fencing to really hold our perimeter. Another item to highlight is the fact that we've really minimized our overall footprint by working within the stream channel for the vast majority of this job. And that is a substantial benefit to the amount of impacts and tree loss that occurs with the nature of stream restoration work and getting the necessary large-scale construction equipment in to make these improvements. Next slide. So this and the following slide highlights just the overall extent of the project. Again, starting from where the water leaves the pipe, we've got a pool and then a cascade structure before we go to a series of pools coming down through the stream. Really, our goal here, raise the channel up, take out the energy from the system, prevent that future erosion, and reconnect the floodplain as much as we can to really improve the health of the floodplain area and ecosystem surrounding the stream. Next slide. And then that shows, and if you can, yeah, that's good. And here it continues down to the Pink Trail, again, where we have our access crossing. And from the Pink Trail, we then convey and make improvements down just shy of the Piney Run confluence, which is just upstream of a trail that runs along Piney Run. And then we've done some pretty extensive floodplain modeling. Beyond what we typically do, we've analyzed the 100-year as well as a 500-year event, just to ensure that with changing climate that we have a firm grasp on the changes that we're making to the stream, not having any negative impacts outside of our project area or to the surrounding community. Next slide. So with this, in the following slide, I'll talk about the kind of the vegetation impacts and then the proposed planting. This does highlight our limit of disturbance. There will be replanting throughout, but with some really focused super clump plantings in areas of highest impact. And what that's doing is, we certainly have compaction that will happen as we're staging and stockpiling material. As we remove matting and start to get out of the site, we will certainly work the soils and then propose a higher density planning so that we give that a good chance for vegetative uptake and good reestablishment of the wooded condition that is there now. If you can go to the next slide. This touches on, again, the vegetation community inventory plan. That was an upfront activity for us to make sure that we were protecting the areas of highest quality and minimizing our impacts as much as possible to trees and the ecosystem. Of the trees that we surveyed, which is 4-inch trees and larger, there were 850 surveyed. We are proposing to remove 115. Of the 115, 13 were already noted as dead. And if you look at the tree inventory, you'll also note that there's several others or many others that also note the impacts of the stream that are occurring currently. So you can anticipate that there would be, again, more trees lost without the restoration practice. In addition, we have a tree preservation and protection plan, as I mentioned, for trees to remain. And then we will have an extensive native restoration replanting, and you can see the quantities there go well beyond the impacts from the removal and the job itself. And then we will have the invasive plant management to really ensure that those invasives don't overpower the plantings that we put in, and we give the restoration the ability to thrive as we move away from the project after construction. So I'll move quickly through the next few slides, but I wanted to give and highlight some examples of stream restorations done within the county. We've done many miles of this within our implementation branch, and this gives you just some views. On the left, pre-restoration, on the right, immediately following completion and planting. And then if you go to the next slide, and that's taken at the same location, then you see 2 years after construction completion, the vegetation reestablishing in that corridor. Next slide. Now, this is a job that is more in line with the size channel that we have out at Piney Run tributary, but again showing the erosion and then some similar practice of restoration immediately following completion at Lower Potomac Ballpark. Next slide. Similarly, looking at some significant erosion that was restored where we've got a meander, and we have done some armoring and toe protection, and throughout this project also addressed some realignments that needed to occur. But again, pre-restoration and post restoration example. Next slide. And here's another turkey run at Truro, another example of practices that can be employed. I think one key difference on this that I would highlight, this does show a more significant clearing than what we'll see for the vast majority of the work we're proposing at Piney Run Tributary, because on our job, we are proposing to stay within the channel versus putting access adjacent. So again, trying to minimize that footprint of impact as best we can. Next slide, please. So again, reflecting on current status, we're at 65% design. We're here now for the rest in DRB process, and then plan to move this forward for construction plan set, final permitting, with the goal of a construction authorization this summer, anticipating about 6 months following authorization for a bid award and construction start. And then post-construction monitoring would happen multiple years after warranty and beyond warranty. And that wraps up the slides prepared. And yeah, I think that, I guess at this point, I'll just open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. First, we have to go to affected parties, and then we'll come back and ask you any questions, okay?
All right.
LaShonda, I think there's a few affected parties, correct? I know there's a couple clusters and...
Correct. Excuse me. First, we're going to unmute Mark Lowenthal. And just to remind you, you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Sean, I'm speaking for my entire cluster. So I'm speaking for my entire street, so I would like to have 5 minutes if necessary.
And individuals, if you're not a part of the cluster,
if he's speaking for the street, LaShonda, I can award 5 minutes. It's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. We have several concerns, some of which Aaron has touched on. First of all, we were not informed of this project until I happened to see a survey team working behind my house, right back out here, tagging trees on Reston property and my property. And that's how Center Harbor Road found out about the project. The excuse we were given was that we don't have a cluster association, so we have no way to get in touch with you. And obviously, this is not a viable excuse. We just want to stay informed of all stages of the project. We understand the necessity of the work. We're not arguing about that. We have had some modifications made in the plan, and we appreciate that. But we still have continuing concerns that we think need to be resolved before the plan can go forward. First of all, the issue of traffic. The amount of construction traffic that will use the entire length of Center Harbor Road every day raises issues of noise. A lot of homeowners on this street work from home. This is going to affect their ability to do their work. It's going to affect the ability of people on the street to come and go. And eventually it's going to affect the state of the road itself, the tarmac. There's a special concern to the houses down here in the cul-de-sac and on the pipe stem, and the addresses of the house are in my statement. I'm not going to read them off. We will be closest to the stream access point, and we're concerned about that. We have been given assurances about the workers not parking on our street, but we want to make sure that is firmly understood that they are not going to be parking their cars, trucks, however they get to work on Center Harbor Road. In terms of the construction, the contractor and crews have to be directed in the bid documents and in the final contracts to use the least impactful damaging means, methods, and techniques of construction on certain parts of this project because of its location near homes and established forest areas. The contract should say in very clear terms what careful means, and there should be financial repercussions for breach of the requirements. We continue to be concerned about the hours that the work will be done, as this will affect many of the houses on the street, in fact, all of the houses on the street. We are also concerned about the number of crews working on the project so as to minimize the time required to complete the project. We have a number of concerns about preserving trees and plant restoration, and Aaron has touched on this. Basically, we're in the same position that Emily Inglis was in discussing an earlier project. We think there should be canopy restoration and one-to-one replacement of trees. Emily was talking about trees that were older than she is. I'm 75. There are trees back here that are older than I am. And these trees have been here for quite some time. We understand some of them have to go, but we think there has to be a complete tree preservation plan to restore the site as quickly as it can. Two houses in particular are going to be affected by this. My neighbor's house at 11256 and the house on the other side of the Pink Trail in 11258. They are against the Pink Trail. They are shielded from the trail by trees, pine trees, and bushes. They're on Reston Association property. Now, Aaron has spoken about efforts that we made to shield this foliage from damage, but we'd like to have an assurance that if in fact these trees and bushes are damaged, that they'll be fully replaced so that those two homes in particular can enjoy the privacy they have now. The Pink Trail is an immensely popular trail. There's a lot of people walking on it. We can see them all day from the back of our house. And so we're concerned about that as well. So those are our three main areas of concern: traffic, construction, and preservation of plant and restoration. And the timing, we would like this done as quickly as possible. Which affects the issue of the crews, how many crews are working on the project. And as I said, for example, I don't know if all of my fellow residents on the street were informed of this DRB meeting. And so I just want to make sure that, everything is done possible to make sure that everybody on Central Harbor Road is informed, because this is going to affect the entire length of our street. Every house is going to be affected by traffic and construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Dana Culver.
Oh yeah, hi. Actually Mark did a fabulous job speaking. I'm the one who's on the Pink Trail, the 11258. So my house is right up against the trail. So just to reiterate the points that he made, because he was speaking for my street, so I probably I won't take the 3 minutes, but really the traffic and the construction. Also, I would like to request that it doesn't start till 9 in the morning, because I think really early in the morning, that would just be very disturbing to the entire street. So at least this way, the kids get off to school, we can get to work, and then they start at 9 a.m. if possible. And other than that, Mark said everything perfectly, so I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last affected party is not present. It was Diane Williamson. So that wraps it up for the APs.
Great. Okay. There was some issues with a cluster with their sewer line, and they wrote a statement. There's no one from that cluster that's wanted to speak. I know Aaron kind of addressed it pretty well with what their process is, but I know there was some concern about that. And they've ran into it in the past, and they have, a good way to fix it, but I'm going to ask for them because I don't think they're here. Aaron, there's no impact to their sewer service when you guys are doing whatever you do to get that thing back below grade, correct?
Right. Yeah, we would do our best to protect throughout our work. And unless there was an unintentional impact, you would not anticipate any interruption of service. The current condition is left susceptible to impacts, as you can see in the photos.
Yeah. So I just wanted, I saw a statement from a cluster. I just wanted to make sure that was addressed while we were, since we had you here. As a board, I don't know what we can imply from a traffic standpoint, but do you have a plan of how you guys are going to attack these? I mean, obviously you've done these a lot in the past. I know you've done them all in a couple other locations in Reston. They always turn out beautiful, and they do restore the environment, so that they're definitely beneficial. Everyone's, we're always concerned about how we get there. What is kind of the plan for parking and worker traffic, et cetera, for this one specifically?
Yeah, so one thing that I think is kind of consistently surprising on these jobs, and this is in general a smaller stream restoration project, the crew size is not overly large, so the parking requirements is not all that significant typically with the contractors, and they would typically park adjacent to the access. We want to be mindful of not impacting the day-to-day use or day-to-day access, throughout Center Harbor Road, and did discuss looking for some parking out options at a park that's nearby, which we certainly can consider, and would work with the contractor just to make sure that we're not disrupting those that live in and around the access there.
Yeah, because I know there's North Hills Park
Yeah.
that's up, and then they can walk down the trail essentially, and you can get down to where the stream is being restored, and then obviously any big machinery and stuff would need to come down through where you guys plan on it. But what is the biggest piece of equipment that you guys take down in these usually? I mean, is there you guys even use like a little mini X or anything like that, or what's like the biggest thing you guys bring down there?
Yeah, Lindsay, you can probably tell me the size excavator, but a full size excavator, and then they've got tracked dump trucks that they're working within the stream. Lindsay, do you want to touch on typical equipment for this size job?
We may need to unmute Lindsay.
Sorry, I had remuted myself before when Aaron was presenting. I didn't want to have any dog barks or anything. So the typical equipment would really be, I can't give you the model number, but it's a mid-size excavator, I would say. It's usually smaller than what you see on highway jobs, and they tend to have the centered rather than the back counterweight on them because of the turning movements in tight environmental spaces. So,
and will that fit on the path entrance that you guys are trying to get down with the tracks, Will?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's pretty standard to have, probably 2 excavators, and then a lot of times the contractors will use either a track truck. So it's tracks with a small dump bed on the back, but it actually can swivel so that you don't have to back into tight spaces. They have the ability to spin the bed to dump the material. So there's really pretty specialized equipment that's used for these types of jobs.
Okay, and then my last question, is the trail going to have to be closed for this? Are we going to be able to reroute it? Is there a plan for that? I know in when we did some stuff in South Reston, I think we rerouted a trail temporarily. Are we having to close the Pink Trail for this project?
So we are anticipating closing, and that's something we're working with Reston Association. There's a liability concern there for the contractor as well as the property owner. So yeah, I know
Do
that
we know
there's
how
been
long
some.
that'll be approximately, Aaron?
So it would be closed during once they get active construction going. So we show a 1-year construction schedule, but there's certainly startup time that it wouldn't be closed, where we're doing survey flagging, walking the limit of disturbance before we have controls or active construction happening on site. But it is a more significant duration of that full schedule that would have to be closed while they're active with construction, because that is the one way in, one way out.
Yeah, because Ben, have we ran into this before where we've actually had to close an entire, because it's a tricky trail access because there's really no way to get out once you get back. I mean, if you go, I'm trying to think, have we ever had to deal with this where there's going to be essentially a dead end if you get down a little too far on the Pink Trail there? Can we unmute Ben?
While you're doing that, Michael, I can't remember specifically, but not a trail, but an access from the Tall Oaks, formerly Tall Oaks Village Center, where they were redeveloping that area. the trails were closed, but I can't remember the name of the exact.
Yeah, but the thing is, you could still get around that one because there was
Right.
other trails in the vicinity to be able to kind of bypass it basically, and it was kind of a dead end already into Tall Oaks. And since the center was closed, it didn't really matter. Is
Yeah,
Ben?
I'm unmuted now. It's going to
Yeah.
take a little bit more effort, definitely, to figure out a reroute option for this one. I'm working with our pathway supervisor, Linda Thomas, on exactly what that detour might look like. But we would basically be, having to do some kind of turnaround right after you get off of, those Bright Pond kind of sections of our Pink Trail. Either have a turnaround there where people just go back the way they came so that they can at least enjoy that natural environment coming into that area. And then if they want some connectivity, the sidewalks in the area are pretty solid, but you do have to go along a relatively busy road, even though there are sidewalks there. So working with our Pathways crew on exactly what that will look like, but it's definitely going to be a challenge.
Okay. Yeah, just something that I was thinking about because I feel like we've never had to shut down because I don't know if we've ever used a trail entrance to get to a stream restoration before. It's usually through a different sort of easement or something from what my recollection is. So I just was more curious how we were going to do it. So let me go around the room, have see if there's some questions for the applicant, and then we'll go from there. Emily, I saw you raised hand raised. You want to go first?
Sure. On the note of our site access, is there a plan to replace the trail from the just sheer amount of a year's worth of equipment going to and fro?
Yeah, so we will, and this also will touch base on the use of Center Harbor Road, but we do monitor pre-construction condition versus post-construction condition. So we'll have matting down on the trail, and that should do a really good job of preventing impacts. But if there were impacts from our work, we're going to repair those.
Okay. And then thank you for that, Aaron. I'd like to just say that was a great presentation. I think you guys have been very, very thorough. There's so many things that I always want to hear during a presentation, and I was hearing. I happen to live back up against a project very similar to this, and my only caveat going on 4 years now is the ongoing invasive species management and the amount of fencing that's still up for the reforestation is something that I feel like would be a good thing to communicate with the homeowners that are in the surrounding area so that they have reasonable expectations of exactly the ongoing effects. And, sometimes you get the invasive species management, you get them out there once a year, there'll still be trucks out there once a year. So those sort of expectations, I feel like would be helpful for you guys to relay to the communities that you're affecting. And the only other comment that I did hear is, noise ordinance, you guys can't start any crew up before 7 a.m. and they have to shut down at 10 p.m. That's just Fairfax County noise ordinance. I don't think we can do anything else. And correct me if I'm wrong, admin, on setting timeline or times that we can actually do the work in. But typically we can't start up heavy equipment before 7 a.m. And but other than that, I'd just like to say, great presentation, really thorough, and with these types of projects, as much as it sucks, I kind of tell people it's like chemo. We're working on to correct a really bad problem, and to do that, we've got to do some other things that kind of suck, but it's for the greater good. So thank you guys so much for your presentation, and I will pass the mic.
Emily, echoing that point, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. is one heck of a swath of time. Perhaps the applicant, these folks are going to volunteer a tighter window than 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'd be just curious to hear from them in terms of what their suggested working hours are going to be.
Yeah, so in the contract documents, and this is anticipated to go to one of our annual construction contract holders. And in the specifications, they do have the ability to operate within the noise ordinance, which is 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Not a heck of a lot better, right? But an hour shorter on the tail end there, and then reduced hours on the weekend and holidays. And that is standard practice. And we do have and have received feedback from the community with the desire to move efficiently, because we certainly appreciate that construction out, adjacent your home is impactful, and limiting those hours, especially when we have shorter daylight hours, it's going to be a challenge for the contractor. And their typical hours, their early start, and they're going to want to get as much as they can out of a day when weather is favorable, because certainly these jobs are very weather dependent. And limiting their hours on a daily basis, especially the start, because they're traveling oftentimes from areas outside, sometimes significantly outside of Fairfax County. It's a challenge for their operation, and I think would ultimately result in a longer duration and higher cost for us. So, and then as far as crews handle it differently, I've seen a number of crews that will do 4 10-hour days and take Friday and the weekend off, depending if progress is going well and weather's working with them. But each crew is a little bit different. Most prioritize the weekdays and would only leverage weekends whenever weather has really been a challenge for them and they're up against the construction duration. And once they get towards that point, we have contract mechanisms to hold them with liquidated damages to the contract terms that we set at the start. And then, Susie, did you want to touch at all on the invasives post-construction?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Invasive management is really important for us because as many of you probably know, as soon as we open the canopy, the invasives just go wild. So we're very serious about controlling the invasives. We'll do invasive management starting in the beginning, right at the start of notice to proceed. We'll try to get in there. And we'll do as much mechanical removal as we possibly can. One of the good things about the construction is that when we're grading in the stream channel, we can actually get the roots without using chemicals to control invasives. So we take advantage of being in there. We also look at our LOD, and we try to go just beyond our LOD, maybe 20, 25 feet, in order to reduce the amount of pressure that we get from invasive plants outside of the LOD. This is a really great opportunity to check, the invasive vines that are growing up our trees, some of the wineberry that's in the system and starts popping up as soon as the light opens up. This is really important because these plants, you'll see them now. You can see the invasives in the woods now. They're usually the first ones to leaf out. They're grabbing whatever light they can get, and then they have the potential to shade out our native plants that we're putting in. So we will do heavy invasive control during the limit of the construction period. Then that'll be followed by a 1-year warranty after the plants go in. We'll continue to do the invasive monitoring through that period. As we go through time, the invasives will diminish, but we don't want to leave them once the end of warranty rolls around. We continue with the vegetation monitoring to make sure that we're still getting really good growth out of our natives. And invasive management has to be part of that. But as I said before, it will diminish as we go. We contract with various local contractors who are very efficient with their use, but they will be on site 2 to 3 times a year to control invasives as much as possible. And they're spot treating, and that's how they're successful. They don't need to use a lot of chemicals. They're very narrow in their treatment. But timing is really important. to minimize the amount of treatment that's needed and the amount of chemical that needs to go down. So I hope that answers some questions about our handling of invasives.
Yep. And then the fencing and communicating what we're doing and why it's still out there is certainly something we can work with the community. I know that we've got some active community members now that I know will be interested to see how we manage that post-construction. And deer browse is a big issue for us after we get those plants in the ground. So we hang on to it as long as it's an issue for us, and then we'll certainly make sure that it comes out.
Okay, great. Mike spoke, Emily spoke. Camelia, did you have anything?
Sorry, no, thanks. I'm good.
John, did you have anything? John, you still here?
No, I believe he left.
Okay. We're down to 5 members. Just for the record, we're still good. Brian, you have anything?
No questions.
Michael, I had a couple other things. We talked.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. There's one slide on access routes. I'm just curious. I mean, you talked about 2 excavators. You're talking about material. I saw in some of the renderings we've got something that looks like decent sized riprap, or I forget what the VDOT equivalent is of heavy stone fill, whatnot, for the armoring and whatnot that's going to go in on the stream restoration efforts. I mean, we also heard some talk about how we kind of have a dead end pathway down here, and we're going to work with, try and figure out a way to not have this be a totally closed path section. I mean, are we using that all as a haul road? What's the plan there?
So, LaShonda, if you go up a couple slides, actually go to 59. Yeah, that one works. So you can see the haul road or the trail connection out to Center Harbor on the far right. So it would be closed from Center Harbor in and across the stream that we're restoring to the staging area that is beyond the stream. So that is our way in and out. That would be the section that is closed through our construction.
And presumably, given the vehicle size, the equipment size we're talking about, that you guys are anticipating a full restoration there of what I assume is going to get pretty beat up in the back and forth.
So we typically, I mean, there's 2 strategies. You can assume that you're going to go and repair and do the asphalt, or you can mat it. And I believe our plan right now, we're going to mat and try to preserve because it's in pretty good condition as it sits right now. And the matting has shown to be successful for, good protection for the asphalt. But again, if we saw damage as we look at pre and post construction condition, we would certainly repair to the pre-construction condition or improved.
Okay. Now, you talked a lot about liquidated damages with regard to your mechanism to hold the contractor a little bit accountable in terms of when they're going to finalize, finish, wrap things up. What is the total duration here? And I might have missed that in the narrative. So
So we're anticipating a 1-year construction schedule in this.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, with the contract terms, et cetera, that you guys have not, this is not new, right? You guys have done this before. You guys have gone through this mechanism and process before. You guys have the tiller, right? You guys have the driver's seat. You can put in some working hour restrictions that you would obviously be able to impact what they're gonna do. I understand, not driving the boat entirely, but you have that authority. You have that ability, correct?
Yeah, we can set specifications for project specifics. And we are dealing with the range of feedback and trying to strike balance, which at times is, as you know, not always in alignment. Just trying to optimize the work that's being done, make sure that we're getting a good quality product of work that's going in the ground, as well as get in there and get out of there as efficiently as possible.
Understood. I mean, to that point, 410s is great and all. I'd love to be able to work 410s. That'd be swell. But obviously they want to be done in a heck of, I'm sure that the folks living adjacent to this thing would want to be done a heck of a lot sooner than a year if they could.
Right.
I mean, that being said, I mean, is there any, even if we kept it to, I don't know, the school hours, if we kept it to something more reasonable than, say, leaving it available to them to work until 9? I mean, that's a long time in terms of the peak hours that we all want to be using these trails and the reason why we all live in Reston, right?
So as far as limiting, I think that my experience, you're not going to see them stay to that 9 o'clock hour. You know, they're gonna utilize daylight. We're going to have the seasonal variation there, which will shorten the hours certainly at times in the year. And I don't see them staying through the 9 o'clock time during the summer hours. I caution limiting the start. And working and coordinating with our construction division that will ultimately take this and see it through a successful construction period.
Sure.
They also, in my coordination, are concerned about that front end limitation, because I think it can,
in terms of start time.
Yeah, it can hamstring the contractors a bit.
I would also echo that, you know, you have with weather dependent work, especially on a site like this where you can't throw 2 or 3 crews at it because the site is tight. You can't fit another machine. You can't make sure that there's another 40 bodies back there because you don't have the parking for it. That limiting their hours is going to make this project drag on. And all of those issues of noise and parking and things are just going to get exacerbated by saying, hey, you can't be there during a certain set of hours. Like, you know, most in Fairfax County, again, unless you have an industrial zoning, they're going to start their vehicles up at 7 a.m. and then they're going to drive into their job sites or wherever they're going to be. So you're not going to see a crew show up at 7 a.m. You might see the managers, but you're not going to get that really, really loud noise until a more reasonable period anyway. So I echo Aaron's argument that if it's a double-edged sword, the less you, or the more you limit their hours, the longer this project's going to take, and you're just going to be 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other.
Yeah. Right. And then just one thing to add, you know, I know number of crews has been a discussion point. It's a small site, and we're limited on space and material that can be handled in the space. And you know, we limited that space for good reason, to minimize the environmental impact and the tree take. So again, there's a balancing act there where, you know, we're holding to the staging areas that we have shown, because I think that's critical for them to be able to do the work efficiently. The work itself is kind of it's a linear nature. We want to work upstream to downstream so that we don't have erosion that's causing, you know, improvements that are made downstream to fill in or fail in any way. So it's a constrained process, and I think the best way for us to leverage efficiency is well thought out design plan, as Lindsay and the McCormick Taylor team have done, as well as really working with our construction division to find a very practical, but as constrained as we can, schedule that we hold the contractor to at the start. That's the plan of action at this point.
Understood. I appreciate the additional discussion. Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks.
Brian, did you have anything?
No, nothing for me.
So I guess what we need to discuss is kind of how we can, as the design review board, I think overall the project is presented well. It's a little bit of the aftermath and the current and during construction that really we're most concerned about. So I don't even know. Since Reston is the applicant, Ben, are you guys willing to get us a study on the pathways and how we may see some sort of temporary, whatever happens, whether it's an end, whether it's a dead end turnaround, or whether it's a a detour or whatever we can do. I know we have different easements and stuff that exist that don't have pathways, as an example. I don't know if there's any around here that we could, utilize. I don't know. So can you guys commit to putting together kind of a plan of how we can see where the trail can be picked up, backed off, any sort of maybe temporary signage or whatever is going to be involved for that portion? And
Yeah.
then Cam is raising his hand because maybe I'm saying too much.
You nailed it. I just wanted to cautious the DRB in terms of going into some aspects that are maybe not subject to the design review board's purview. So access to the trails and things of that nature, while are of course things that RA members should be aware of, and RA will do all of the notification and communications that we need to handle. I don't believe that area, unless it's signage related, is something that is subject to the DRB's review. So to put a stipulation or a requirement in any decision or concept would be something that would not be under your purview to do.
Yeah, but asking for an updated trail map or something of what's going to happen, I don't think that's.
I'll just say that it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Tony's coming in now.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna get yelled at. All right, Tony, what's up?
I'm just going to concur with Cam. The logistics of how this is carried out and whether or not the trail is operable or usable is not for this board to decide. That's a business function of RA. You know, the design review board again is what does it look like? What's the signage like? Things like that.
Okay. What's your feeling on working hours and noise?
Working hours and noise is also a logistics thing that'll be handled by RA as a business.
Okay.
I
So-
have an aesthetics related question.
Perfect. I'm gonna put us back in line then. Go for it.
Existing trees and felling them, what is the plan with the materials that are going to be cut down? Are we leaving them on site? Are we topping them? What's the left condition of the existing vegetation?
Yeah, so I can start, and Susie, you can certainly add to it. But we do try to leverage and utilize the trees as much as possible. We work them into and as part of design features where it's feasible. At times we will leave snags, so a tree that doesn't have to be fully removed because it's in conflict with proposed grading or structures, you know, can be left at times for habitat, which would be cut, you know, 10 feet off the ground so that, you know, their burrowing can still occur, and birds can use the feature. And then trees within the floodplain are a beneficial feature. You know, we're not going to cut and leave all that we take down, but certainly, you know, they also help with that energy mitigation as we increase the connectivity with the floodplain. Having the trees that do naturally fall within the floodplain corridor are to our benefit, to slow the water down, spread it out, and give that ecosystem a boost as well. Susie, anything to add? Or
I think you've covered it pretty well. We do like to see the material used as much as possible on site, and you know, some of it there's often, and maybe Lindsay can confirm or deny this, but chipping up some of the wood and using it underneath our timber mats to protect the trail and to protect the roots of trees along the access roads. That's one use of the material. You know, using it actually in the stream bed to create habitat and to stabilize the stream banks. It's a really cool use of the wood. Like Aaron said, the snags are great. And then sometimes we will do debris piles that are secured limbs of trees that look, they can look unsightly at the beginning, but they immediately start to, you know, foster new growth of seedlings, provide a nice habitat for the regeneration of the native seed mix, the native seed that's on site.
thanks, Susie. Lindsay, anything to add?
No, I think you all covered it pretty well. I mean, I think I would probably just note the conversations that we've had all like throughout each of our site walks where it's kind of balancing that natural aesthetic with sort of the experience of the folks on the trail that might not want to see, all of the trees felled and in a giant pile. So, finding that natural balance between the ecological function and the aesthetics. So.
Thank you guys so much. The reason that I ask is really leaning in and saying, like, I know these things, but you want to convey that to the neighborhood and the communities, because you'll get a lot less pushback if they know why there's a pile of dead tree left in their view behind them, because it is
Right.
good for them. So again, I would just kind of echo to make sure that communication is key. If that is going to be a detail that you're going to push forward, making sure that it's very apparent to the neighbors that are going to be affected by the project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, well, I think we've talked about everything. Does anyone want to make a motion? Because I'm tired of making motions, so somebody else can make one.
I'll tackle this bad boy. I would make a motion to approve the application as submitted with the request that the applicant do a little bit further study or a little bit further detailed diagramming of their intended remediation efforts and what this is going to look like when the project is going to be completed as they continue forward. But I would like to make a motion to approve it in concept as submitted.
So what are you exactly are you asking for them to do for the amendment?
So my exact specifications would be things like cross sections, details, things that they're going to be required to do on their grading plan submittal
Right,
anyway.
I'm assuming that's what they'll do during their next 95% design.
So-
Correct. Yeah.
And it's included currently. And 65% we have most of the details. The profiles are already included. And it's a refinement, but that information is in the larger plan set, which was part of our application. So we would certainly take it and refine it, just moving it forward. But Lindsay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the lion's share of the content is in the set currently, just wasn't included in the presentation itself.
Yeah, I would agree, Aaron. A lot of that is the sort of constructability pieces and less so the kind of final aesthetics, I would say.
Right. And the finishing touches are also like heading towards final permitting, but it's not a lot of the visuals which are already in the set.
Correct. So I hear you guys. So that's all I'm asking for is when we're getting to that 95% completion plan and the permitting submittal comes back, if there are any changes, we need to be made aware of them, and more of the aesthetics of what this site is going to look like when it's left. More examples of the existing conditions the proposed conditions that it will have on site.
And you're thinking in a form of like, so they provided like the pictures of examples of other projects. You're wanting some more than that, or just kind of an actual better representation of what this looks like once it's done?
I would like to see better representation of what it's going to look like when it's done. I know there were example photos, but even some like renderings they've shown through their project presentation. I think that those would be helpful to not only us as the DRB, but the community. And again, this is approval, but with just some added stipulations of show us some extra pretty pictures, as silly as that sounds.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion with an amendment for it's an approval but just requiring basically a follow-up submission with the super final product, with a little bit more visual representation of what the final stream restoration is going to look like. I'm trying to figure out, I'm sure LaShonda is about to ask the same question I am. LaShonda, go ahead.
So I heard approve in concept. So is that an approval in concept?
I'm sorry. No, just an approval, not an approval in
Okay.
concept.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think it's
Sorry.
an approval, and Emily just wants a little bit more information down the road. Once she wants to basically we want to be kept updated on what the 95% final design set looks like.
Thank you,
and-
Michael. You are translating my words into.
And so it's really an approval with just she's interested and wants to be kept in the loop. Whether it needs to come back to a full board or it could just go to maybe Emily's panel. I would be open to that. Is that, oh, I don't even know. Can I do that, staff?
Or we could just email it to the entire board.
I will
Email-
accept that amendment.
Okay.
Email would require, excuse me, I'm sorry. Email would require unanimous consent, so every DRB member would need
Well,
to. affirmative.
she's not asking for any further. I don't think we're going to give any further approval. I think it's kind of like when we have like, let's say, like the STEAM program where the design isn't finalized yet, but we're giving them approval, and then we just want to be kept up to date if we had a question about something. I know we've done this in the past on murals or things that I don't think there's going to be any further approval. I think she just wants to be kept updated.
If you're just information seeking, that's fine.
Correct. Yeah. All right. So if that's clarified, does that sound good, Emily?
It does. Thank you.
Anybody want to second it?
I'll second.
All right. We have a second. I'm more just checking to make sure everyone's still awake. All those, any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Mike, I don't think I heard you. Any
You did
against?
not. I was going to say against. Mike B
Oh,
against.
any against? All right. And then any abstentions? Okay, so I think it passes 4-1 dash. I don't know if John considers an abstention or just not a vote, but staff, you can help me out with that. But
Yeah, sure, no vote.
it'd be a not here. Okay, so 4-1-0 motion passes. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the time.
All right. Cam, LaShonda, somebody here.
Oh, yeah, sure. So hopefully I can make this really quick. This memo just outlines some proposed some feedback and comments from the BOC committee from the proposed amendments that the DRB presented. So it summarizes all of the key points. And then after the board has incorporated the recommendations for the final revisions, the DGs will go before a full board, again, for a public hearing, which the RA board liaison will facilitate. So I don't know how you want me to handle this. Do you want me to go through each comment? Have you all had a chance to read the comments? How do you want me to tackle it?
Since it's getting late, I would say I don't want you to go through them all. I would rather have somebody point out things. I guess my initial question, I'll just start it. These are feedback from the board on, but they're not really requesting necessarily. They're just comments, right? So we can either accept them, we can either amend our things or not, correct?
That is correct. There's some comments, and then there are also some information to take into consideration, like for example, for political signs. There is a recommendation to extend the time frame. So there are a couple of things, couple of comments, couple of clarifications, and I can run through them. I mean, it's not many.
If I could add into this, it's almost 11 o'clock and I understand it's a very long day I'm sure we've all had. the comments that are here, of course, the DRB can respond to, but staff does need direction from the DRB because the next step in this process is that we would return back to the DRB with basically final revisions that would be up for a public hearing. And so if there are changes based on the feedback from the Board Operations Committee that you'd like to have staff make, we're happy to make those. I think it's really important for the DRB to review and consider these changes because ultimately, as you all know, the Design Review Board proposes recommendations to the changes to the design guidelines, but ultimately the Board of Directors for Reston Association will approve them. I know that Brian, I just like saying your name, Brian. I know that Trevor is on the call. So if Trevor, if you'd like to unmute yourself as the board liaison to the DRB, if you have any additional comments that weren't captured here, or if you have any comments that you'd like to share with the DRB, maybe that would be more helpful. And then we can kind of follow up and see how the DRB would like to proceed with some of the changes. I will say, you know, one particular item was the gutter and downspout design guideline that I think the DRB does need to kind of review and discuss at some point, whether that's tonight or at a future board meeting. But I definitely think that that one in particular has some merit that definitely needs further discussion amongst you all.
Yeah, so overall, I'd say, you know, the board did take a look at all 300 pages of this. Each individual kind of looked at it and made comments and updates. I would note that some of this, the board is not a group of trained professional architects, nor does it sit in nearly the amount of meetings that you do when it comes to design review guidelines. So these are suggestions. These are, given the experience of the board varies, it's consistency that we were potentially looking for, or maybe just a second look at potentially areas of comment. But again, if DRB feels strongly about something, I think the board would understand and would defer to you guys for the most part here. So at 11 o'clock at night, I don't know what the best strategy is to tackle this. Potentially, I don't know if we can make maybe an Excel cheat sheet that allows, a shared document that allows folks to upvote or downvote potential suggestions. That way staff could see, everyone would have a say other than just the 5 folks that are with us tonight. And then you would have the opportunity to quickly assess on your own time and allow staff the opportunity to turn that around for you guys in a final draft. That's just a suggestion, but yeah, it probably wouldn't be as productive. It probably, something would be more productive than maybe going through line by line here at this hour, but it's up to you guys.
And maybe a better suggestion would be, LaShonda put this together and she did a fantastic job, by the way, in putting this memo together. If the DRB has comments on the memo or the comments on what the Board Operations Committee is proposing, that would be a better use of the next maybe 10 minutes. And then the staff can take that direction and move forward with sending out some changes to the DRB between now and the April DRB meeting for you to consider. There's no real timeline on this. Of course, our goal is to better serve the members by getting this through the process, and there's extra steps after this comes from you all. So it's not time sensitive, but it is something that we want to kind of get through before the beginning of Q3 of this year. So would that be a good use of the next 10 minutes, Michael?
Yeah, that's fine with me. And I think there's a couple things like that the BOC is pointing out, like legal concerns that I don't know, right? I would rather have Tony weigh in on it as an example than myself. So like those ones I feel like we can just skip over. So I don't know. So yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. So Michael, do you want to go down the DRB list to see if anyone has any comments?
Does anybody want to comment directly on anything?
Can I ask a question? I mean, are we allowed to schedule a special meeting that we could just look at this on its own? Or does it have to be in this format, like in a public format like this?
The DRB can schedule a special meeting if they would like to, absolutely.
I was just wondering if we could, pick up like Thursday, 2 weeks from now, like an off night where
I do
we
think it would have to be a public meeting because if there's
Yes.
more, yeah,
It'd have to be announced to
officially it's a
public.
public meeting.
Yeah.
I just agree. I think that LaShawn has done an excellent job putting this together, and I want us to give it the time that it deserves to review these comments. And I'm worried about doing that right now, personally.
So I'm seeing a lot of head shaking. Mike is not on camera, but I'm seeing his head shaking through his computer. So would it be happy to send out a poll doodle for a special meeting? That's not a problem. If everyone seems to be on board with that. And I don't think it would take more than an hour. You would just need member comments and we would need to notice the meeting, but absent that, there should be no issue. As long
That
as
was my only question is how long do we have to give notice that we're having a meeting?
Well, I was wondering, could it just be a special meeting that we do like at 6:30 before the next full board?
Yes,
As an
absolutely.
Like where it's just on our night and it's just 30 minutes prior and we knock it out and then then we switch over.
Yes, we can most certainly do that.
Does that work for everybody? I just trying to figure out everyone's schedules and everything. I just feel like that might be more of a nightmare than jumping on 30 minutes early and not leaving it till the end. It's basically my intent.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
And Michael, maybe just leave, maybe put this on the agenda as well on the tail end of the meeting. That way, if you don't finish at that 6:30, you have at least the ability, you wouldn't have to redo the agenda or anything like that. You'd have it there. You could clean up whatever hasn't been taken care of in that 30-minute segment.
Yeah. And I would just say for people to, read through them real quick, get the feedback. There's a couple things I have to say, but it's not major. And then we'll get the final feedback for you guys to be able to, get this sucker approved and through.
Okay, awesome. We will do that. And LaShonda will be leading that discussion. So I'm sure she is looking forward to that opportunity.
I'm sure she is as well. Now I have one question before we adjourn. The whole relax situation and the whatchamacallit, whatever the deed didn't get overturned. How is staff going to handle a lot of the rogue people who went in and installed units and maybe are going to submit medical exemptions or what? I know there was the email you sent out. How is that process going to pan out? I've just had members asking me what's going to happen essentially.
I am so glad you asked that question, Michael, because no one is asking the question. Most people are making assumptions. So the first assumption that is not fully correct, or not correct at all, actually, is that Reston Association does not enforce the covenants as it relates to unapproved installations of HVACs. So members must be aware that Reston Association staff can only inspect properties for 4 different reasons. One being a post-design review board inspection, which means that we are returning to the property to ensure that a decision that was made by the DRB is followed the way that it was written. 2 being a cluster walkthrough, which means the cluster has requested the association to walk through and inspect every single property in every cluster that has requested it. 3 would be a complaint, so an RA member has filed a complaint against another RA member. And then 4 being a resale inspection. So if the property has been listed for sale and they have requested an inspection to be done on the property. If one of those 4 things doesn't happen, Reston Association cannot conduct an exterior inspection. So if your neighbor is installing a station or is doing anything but relax specific, if they're installing an HVAC and you believe that they don't have approval, there is no opportunity for RA to enforce until one of those 4 things happens. So that's how our enforcement mechanism comes into play. And we do cite those things during resale inspections. And unfortunately, it's very unpleasant to be going through the most stressful time of your life, probably, of selling your house and maybe buying another house to have that type of violation associated with the property. So we do address those during those types of inspections. However, what we do ensure and where we try to make sure is that now that the referendum has failed, unfortunately, the only method in which a member can have it is if they have a medical reasonable accommodation. We have reviewed about 15, I believe, since the beginning of February, and they continue to come in 2 to 3 a week since that time frame of December 13th, I think, is when RELAC made the announcement. So we are processing those requests. We are handling any issues or concerns related to enforcement if we get a complaint or if we do a resale. I will also point out the accommodation is per the person. So once that person no longer resides in the home or the home sells, whichever comes first, or they no longer need the accommodation, they will be required to remove the equipment that was installed. As of right now, we have 4 of the 6 clusters that are subject to the covenant that have a DRB approved cluster standard. I believe one cluster is actually resubmitting to update their standard to have some additional language. I think it's Waterview cluster specifically. So we are trying to do as much as we can to handle the amount of applications that we believe will be happening if RELAC cannot honor their commitments to provide service to the members who are affected. I will also share, we shared with the DRB this information as well. We created a specific HVAC application for RELAC members, as well as a sample application that I'm sure Emily saw it and saw, well, that's not a RELAC property. But we used an example neighborhood as an example to create the example application. So we would streamline the process for members to be able to see exactly what needed to be included in the application so that they didn't have any delays in us requesting information, because we know that that is a pain point for members. So hopefully that answers all of your questions. It's recorded and live streamed. And so we'll edit this part out and send it out, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like you were prepared to say that. So I wasn't coached to say anything or even ask the question. So you were just ready. Sounds good. I've been getting questions about it. So I just, I don't know medical exemptions. I know obviously now there's all these magical medical exemptions coming in that didn't exist prior. And I don't know how we, sort through them. So I'm glad I don't have to worry about it, but I just wanted to ask the question. So, anyways, thank you. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was gonna say, can I file a medical exemption being in a meeting past 11 o'clock?
It's technically 10:59, my friend.
My clock is 11:01. What is, I don't know.
Well, it's 11 now. You win.
At least you guys don't have to work on a project. I got a meeting at 8:30 that I got to still do stuff for.
Same Z's.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
Camellia, for
everyone.
joining.
Bye, everyone.
Sorry, they're not always this long, usually. So thank you for joining.
Welcome to the party.
Bye.
Thank you.